Okay. Councilmember Ferguson.
Here.
Councilmember Ham.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Bain.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, be led by Councilwoman Ferguson.
Thank you. Please put your right hand over your heart. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is a report from the Assistant City Manager concerning the city's fiscal year 2018-19 third quarter financial report.
I'm going to have our Finance Services Officer, Jake Ron, provide that presentation to the council.
All right, so given to you today is the 2018-19 third quarter report. We're again past the March 31st timeframe. We're more than 3/4 of the way through this fiscal year, so this is a report on that. Again, just kind of, I usually do this every quarter, kind of give you a snapshot of where we are, where we've been. You can see from 16-17, 17-18, 18-19. We've been in the 62 to 64% range. Again, we're just kind of in line with expectations. There's more information in the report related to these items, but general fund revenues, you can see we're coming in at 62%. The ranges vary from 44% all the way up to 83%, and those, a lot of the differences are kind of related to the timing of things. Property taxes come in April and different things like that. So that's a quick snapshot of the general fund revenues as of March 31st, 2009. General fund expenditures, again, this is kind of a big look at it. Typically, we're around the same as we are in previous years. We have 16-17, 17-18, and 18-19 for historical context. We're at 50.9, which is 65% of the expenditures. Again, kind of in line with expectations at this point. And here's a little bit more information on them. We have salaries, benefits, supplies, contract services, other charges, capital outlay, interdepartmental transfers, and debt. And again, some of these are different due to timing. Capital outlay, we have multiple year projects. That's why we're only at 26%. Some projects may be going full gangbusters. Some might be getting off the ground or being done as that goes. Again, nothing really outside of expectations at this point for those. Operating position, again, this is the operating for the position for the year. We had some mid-year adjustments which boosted this up. The general fund operating position for 18-19 at this point is approximately $1.3 million based on operating revenues of 65.2 and operating expenditures of 63.9. So, and with that, there's more information in the report relating performance measures and capital projects. But basically, our recommended action is to receive and file the city's fiscal year 18-19 third quarter report. So, unless there's any questions, we'll go with that.
Questions or comments? Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
We don't have cards on this, do we? Just on this part?
Not on this. On this item?
Okay. So, do we have to open it up?
I don't have any cards.
Okay.
So if you just want to make a motion to receive
Okay.
and file.
I'll make a motion that we adopt staff recommendation and receive and file the city's fiscal year 2018-2019 third quarter financial report.
So, motion by Councilwoman Ward, a second by Councilmember Ham. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is a public hearing and workshop concerning the City of San Clemente proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-20.
Yes, it's my pleasure to present to you the budget for 2019-2020. As directed by the council, we've prepared a budget that is balanced this year, and I think presents us in a favorable financial position. Next slide, Laura, please. The LTFP that we did earlier this spring provides a roadmap for the budget and how we produce to set things up for the next fiscal year. Some of the accomplishments over this past year includes the implementation of elements of the BPR master plan, safe routes to school projects. We've expanded the SC trolley program. The trolley is going to start this weekend. Unfortunately, due to some issues with OCTA and getting the allocation from them, we're not going to be able to start the connection to Dana Point quite yet. It's going to be about 2 weeks delay or so. Hopefully mid-June when we start up with that. But we're going to start up with the route that we've done for the past couple of years through town. We're still working on the 4th firefighter at Station 50 that we added with the hospital closure a few years ago. Eric will explain in a little bit greater detail, but that position was originally funded through OCFA. It's about an 8-year process where we will take over the funding of that position in its entirety. When we add a firefighter, we're not just adding one firefighter, we're actually adding 3 firefighters because you have 3 shifts. So it's when we get to the end of the process with OCFA, it'll be about an $800,000 budget addition to our budget. Current issues that we're working through on a daily basis and looking for solutions and partnerships to include homelessness. Last night we had a pretty big discussion on the homeless issue. We're working through it. Today, that's what we spent a lot of time doing until we got to the budget. We're still working on the toll road project and processing our fight against any routes that might come through San Clemente. We budget approximately $400,000 for the battle of the toll road to protect the city. Ongoing public safety costs, we'll get into that a little bit deeper into the budget, but public safety is always going up. OCFA is about a 4.5% increase. Sheriff's Department is close to 3%, plus later this summer, they'll probably be finalizing a contract with their deputies union, which will mean a further increase to the city. But we're planning for that in this budget to help cover that cost, because that'll be retroactive back to July 1st. We also have the rising pension costs with our own public safety program. With our lifeguards this year, we've included in the budget for our part-time lifeguards an increase of 2.5% pay increase for the lifeguards. I think we talked about this last year during the budget process, and the council direction to staff was to come to a resolution on it. And I want to thank Heather Lowe and Bill Humphreys for working through this per my direction and come up with something. And, the lifeguards are now on par with the rest of the employees for the city. Future cost increases that will affect the city's operating position. So that might be homelessness, the ongoing toll road battle, but like I said, public safety costs, those are there. And challenges also is loss of sales tax revenue. As we see the expansion of online shopping experience, it reduces the amount of sales tax that comes back to the city. It's unfortunate. I think October of 15 is when the outlets opened up here in the city. They've opened up phase 1. It's about 380,000 square feet of retail. I want to say it's about 75% occupied. They still have phase 2 to open up in the future, which is another 180,000 square feet of retail. But because phase 1 isn't open, they haven't started work on phase 2. And I think that's an indication, as I talk to people out there in the commercial business, that it's a struggle right now in the retail world. So the loss of sales tax is something that we have to be vigilant of. And, I know Steve Schwartz, Mayor Schwartz, was passionate about sales tax, and it's something that Eric and I are working on and trying to come up with some solutions. So, but the staff is here to present the budget, and we'll move on. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, Eric Sund, Assistant City Manager. So, I'm going to do a portion of the presentation, then I'll be turning it over to Jake Ron, our Finance Services Officer, to go over more of the budget. One of the things that I did want to touch off with, and I know that this was a question posed at last night's City Council meeting as it relates to our M2 audit with OCTA, and so I just want to make sure as we're addressing the budget, we're also addressing any other unanswered questions. And so, at the conclusion of those inquiries, the city, I reached out to Janet Sutter, the OCTA's Executive Director of Internal Audits, and then provided the below statement. The bottom line, and this will be available to the public, this whole PowerPoint will be posted on our website, and people can look at this. The bottom line, if you go to the bottom, in short, the city didn't fail. The audits were brought publicly to the OCTA F&A Committee in March, and the Board of Directors in April. The audits will also go public to the Audit Subcommittee of the TOC tonight, which was yesterday. We audited a total of 12 different cities, 11 audits of LFS and 4 of SMP. LFS is the M2 Transportation Funds, and the SMP is the Senior Mobility Program. When presenting the results to the F&A Committee, I said, Janet, the auditors identified findings at every city audited except one, and in many cases identified multiple findings. So San Clemente is not alone. Many of the findings were specific to do with agreed upon procedures. So for instance, in bullets A, the audit of the local fair share identified the issues of one expenditure for $3,800, which was not properly classified as an MOE expenditure. However, after removing the amount from MOE, the city still met their required minimum MOE. Going to bullet number B, the audit of the Senior Mobility Program cited the following: a reporting error on the expenditure report. Again, 3 of the 4 cities audited had some of the same types of reporting errors, of which the city has said that they will be revising the file, which we've already done in the revised report and submitted. And 2, one ineligible SMP trip for $30. Keeping in mind the Senior Mobility Program, and I know Councilmember Ferguson's aware of this very well because it was something under her purview when she worked here. There are boundaries in terms of where we can transport seniors in the Senior Mobility Program. And then 3, transportation services not competitively bid, but that was corrected effective August of 2018, thanks to Tom Bonnegat in Public Works, who conducted a new RFP for Senior Mobility Program, and Council awarded it to, I want to say, Yellow Cab, if I remember correctly. Our previous provider was Agewell. And then 4, a late submission of monthly reports. This was observed at 3 of the 4 cities audited. So again, she indicated there is no pass or fail for cities. However, based on the audits, 2 cities were found ineligible to receive M2 funds. Those 2 cities were agendized at last week's Board of Directors meeting with OCTA. However, San Clemente was not one of these cities. And when the annual eligibility review subcommittee of the TOC met last week, they suggested 3 cities that were audited for fiscal year 17 and 18 will be re-audited in 18 and 19. And one of these is San Clemente, so will be looked at again. The final decision as to what cities to select for audit will be made by the audit subcommittee of the Taxpayers Oversight Committee, and they meet tonight, although I imagine they will reselect San Clemente. So they're going to check on us again. We didn't lose any issues of expenditure or grant monies, and we were in compliance with that. So again, I just wanted to address this. This will be available on our website, and we'll move on to the budget. So it's important. Every year when we do a budget and an LTFP, we talk about themes. And this goes back to my predecessor, Paul Good-Garrison, who talked about having a theme within the budget. So for 2016 and 17, it was investing today to protect tomorrow. And 17 and 18, it was as we approach future years, it is essential for the city to do more with less. And then in 18 and 19, the city is focused on the reallocation of budget and services to meet priorities. And then this year, coming fiscal year, accomplishments during the year are significant, but they're only the start in seeking solutions for longer-term issues. And so, for the last 4 years, we've been fiscally preparing for issues that we have seen forecasted within our LTFP. And, whether it's when positions are vacant, we reevaluate those positions and see what we can do, or if it's funding reserves to make sure that we have money when specific critical infrastructure is deteriorating and needs to be replaced. And so I'm really proud of what our budget team has done to get us to this point with regards to being a fiscally solvent city. So the key themes: maintain a strong financial foundation. We do that already by implementing the long-term financial plan recommendations, and as James touched on, this is a roadmap that both the council and the public can provide direction at the LTFP workshop as we begin the budget process. And out of that LTFP, we came back with pension paydown. So we have a $400,000 one-time paydown that Jake will cover a little bit later in his presentation, and adding fiscal policies on pensions to address our unfunded liabilities. Also, the transfer of capital project funds and funding reserves, as I touched on earlier, making sure that we have money to deal with critical infrastructure. And in working to increase the operating position for 18 and 19. Because again, our operating position dictates how much money we have for unassigned fund balance to fund our one-times, be it CIPs or other one-time priorities. Reallocating budget services to meet priorities. So we're constantly looking at different opportunities. So with regards to cooperative efforts and partnerships, whether that's the Friends Foundation that helps offset recreational services, funding the toll road, hospital, and homelessness. Obviously, the council has given direction to staff as it relates to quality of life issues. And with that being said, we have to redirect our funds to address those costs and continue to deal with quality of life issues. And I think as a government agency, we're always tasked with maintaining efficiency and not getting stale in any routine, and always making sure that we can do it the most efficient way possible and cost effective. And then again, continue investing in the future of San Clemente. As I've said multiple times, during the 2008 recession, the city couldn't fund reserves. Since 2012-13, we've got back on that track of funding reserves because as parks deteriorate, if you don't have money to replace them, I go back to that broken window theory. One of the big steps forward that's going to guide us over the next 15 years is the Beach Parks and Recreation Master Plan implementation that is currently going on. You've had some updates in the current budget year, and you'll see tonight some of those implementation measures going forward in the 1920 budget. Again, I want to give a shout out to Samantha Wiley, who has taken the lead on this and really done a great job. And then also our information technology strategic plan. We didn't have an IT plan or a strategic thought process as what we were going to do from an IT standpoint. And 4 years ago, led by Brian Brower, he created the IT strategic plan that basically created the similar roadmap for our CIPs, identifying IT investments over the course of 6 years. And Brian's made amazing strides with regards to doing a number of projects. I think the most significant that we're all enjoying is the recent transition to our voice over IP system on our phones, which was long overdue and has created such a streamline of easier access and service to the public. So I give kudos to Brian and his team. As I said before, I think it's important to note, anytime a position is vacant, we stop, we step back, and we reevaluate those positions and those functions. And so tonight you're going to see, or today you're going to see some of the results of that. So in the general fund, we see a decrease of 1.75 full-time positions. That's a net. Below, we've got some changes that reflect that with regards to finance and administrative services, the building division, beaches, park and recreation, and other funds, i.e. Utilities, where we have a decrease of 2.0 FTE positions. The one thing that's amazing about the employees in San Clemente is they're up for a challenge, and they can always look for improvements at how to deliver services, and we couldn't do these types of reallocations or reorganizations without the support of the employees. And I think it's important to note that we can give recommendations, but it's the employees who really implement those recommendations. And in all these recommendations you see before you, these were actually brought forward by the department managers or division managers and department heads in terms of recommending ways to do it better, because it's been such a long-standing practice in the city to always look at reevaluating vacant positions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jake Ron, our Financial Services Officer, and he's going to give a budget overview.
All right, so I'll just go to the next slide. As you can see on the top right-hand side are various pages that relate to the information that's being presented on the slide. This is the all funds summary. It encompasses all funds of the city. Total revenues are budgeted at 139.4, and total expenditures or costs are budgeted at 144.9. As is usual with this, expenditures are slightly more than revenues, and that's because we're using one-time resources, whether it be fund balance or one-time revenues received in previous years for costs. So just looking at the costs, the all funds overview, this is on page 31. The city has 5 major fund groups, and within those fund groups, there are 26 funds. Just so you understand, the general fund is about 49% of the total costs, and then enterprise comes in second at about 36% of costs. And the enterprise funds include water, sewer, which are the primary big ones for the enterprise funds. And with the next couple of slides, or with the next few slides, I'll be focusing on the general fund. Again, revenues and expenditure comparison. This is all costs, all revenues, including operating and one-time costs or capital costs. So this includes everything. And like the all funds, you can see the expenditures are slightly higher than the revenues. Again, we'd be using fund balance or revenues received in previous years for those one-time costs, whether it be capital in nature or other one-time costs that need to be done. So the next slide, the general fund operating budget comparison. This one factors out capital outlay and reserve or one-time transfers. So you can see we're kind of still a little bit tight. Last year we had 65.2 and costs of 63.8. This year we have 67.3 and costs of 66.9. So again, operating, we are in a positive operating position. It's just tight like it has been the last couple of years. So to get a little bit more specific on the general fund operating position, again, these tie out to the previous slide. We have operating revenue of $67,338,790,000, less the operating expenditures of $66,937.50 for an operating position of $401,000, which it might sound like big dollars, but when you're already talking big dollars, it's not that big. Again, it's 0.6, or the $401,000 is approximately 0.6% of the operating costs. So just so you have a little bit of perspective, typically we'd like to have this number a little bit more around 500,000 to $1 million, just to provide funds for future capital projects and provide a little bit more of operating buffer if things come up during the course of the year to deal with those circumstances. And then total general fund revenues. I'm just going to focus a little bit on the dollar change column and primarily the big changes. You can see the first line is taxes. It's going up about 3%, so about 1.6 million. The primary driver of that is the property tax revenue that we're anticipating for next year. Sales tax, which is also a component of that, is relatively flat with the previous year, kind of going back a little bit to James's comment earlier. Intergovernmental, you can see a big decrease, and the reason for the big decrease is the Safe Routes to School capital project was funded through a grant. So again, naturally, we're carrying out that project. We're not getting that grant every year, so those costs are going down. In addition, we also have the SC rides, which is included in that amount, and there was, I want to say, around $1 million and 900,000 for that. So that's a portion of the decrease also. Another big decrease is in the interfund revenue, and those are actually transfers coming in from other funds to assist with capital projects in the general fund. So that's the decrease. Again, capital projects happen over time, so that can fluctuate from year to year. Total general fund expenditures, again, we're at 71 million. I'll focus a little bit on the first one, and then again, kind of the big ones. The personnel I'm actually going to get to on the next couple of slides. You can see it's going up about 8%, or about 1.5 million. I'll do some comments on the next couple of slides for that. Also to point out, again, the capital outlay, kind of going to my previous comments about the revenues coming in. We had grants for a capital project, and then other transfers coming in to support those projects. Again, capital outlay. There's a lot of information on that in the capital improvement program section of the budget. Interfund transfers, it's about 2.5 million, and what that decrease is 2.5 million was actually transferred. Some of you are around, some of you weren't around. Back in 2017 LTFP and 2018 LTFP, we recommended 2 years of transfers of $2.5 million each year to capital reserves. So the last year of that was in 18-19. So again, we came to the completion of that. It's not budgeted for in 19-20 to move those funds over to the capital reserve.
Jake, real quick, in us doing that $2.5 million twice, that was to get where we're fully funded on our capital improvement funds?
What we came to realize as part of the whole Ole Hansen Beach Club process and the renovation costs related to that is that we needed to set aside a lot more in our reserves to deal with potential things that might happen in the future. And as part of the LTFP process, we're going to be going through that in future years a little bit more to better identify projects that those should be allocated to or different things like that. So,
okay. Can you just, again, with the capital improvement, when we depreciate capital assets each year, we do that on major assets, don't we?
Well, we do, because we've got two kinds of fund types going back to our 5 different categories. It gets a little bit accounting here, but okay. On governmental funds, you don't necessarily depreciate those assets. However, you can set aside reserves for those on the governmental side, but then you go to, again, it gets a little bit accounting-wise. On the full accrual basis, you do that. We actually present both in the city's annual financial report, the full accrual basis and the governmental basis. So yes and no.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about that more. I just wanted to get into how kind of we set aside funds, how we figure that.
One of the ways that we set aside funds is we look at the activity that's happening from those capital reserves and figure out the costs related to that and try to charge back or allocate those costs to the department. So it's not exactly depreciation, but it is setting aside funds based on the activity.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so going to the personnel budget, or hitting a little bit more on the personnel costs. Again, this is the last year of a 3-year agreement with the association. The MOU expires June 30th. Salaries increased 3.1% in each of the years of the agreement. Again, we've reached full employee pickup of their share of the retirement costs. And then there is an annual increase to city-paid portion of health insurance. Also included in that number is ongoing step increases included in the budget, so as people receive increases based on merit, those are received. And again, just to comment a little bit on Eric's slide earlier, the general fund is actually going down by 1 3/4 FTE, and other funds are going down by 2 FTEs. All right, so this is a little bit more of the same information, just presented in a different way for the general fund expenditures. And I'll focus a little bit on the general fund, police services, marine safety, and public works. So the general government, you can see it's going down by $6.4 million. Again, going to some of the comments that I've already talked about. Some of that is the $2.5 million transfer that we're not doing this year. Again, we have already accomplished what we were trying to accomplish, do 2 years of $2.5 million transfers. So part of that decrease is the $2.5 million. Part of it is a reallocation. What we realized is as we were going through the budget and doing the whole pension paper as part of the LTFP, the police services or the public safety UAL, which is the unfunded actuarial liability for the pension, was actually being paid from general government. And really, if you're going to kind of mirror a little bit more what other cities are doing, that would be paid from that program. So what we did is moved it from general government, which is $1.3 million, down to the police services area. So some of that increase in police services is related to the movement of that. And then also in the general government, going back to the capital projects, the 6.4 also includes the Negocio City Hall renovation that's currently going on. So that's some of that. And I think that's $3 million off the top of my head. So that kind of gets you to approximately the $6.4 million. The police services, again, that's about a $1.8 million increase. About 1.2, 1.3 of that is related to the movement from the general government of those pension costs for public safety. Marine safety, I'll point out, they seem to have a large increase, but that's where we're including the $400,000 one-time pay down of their pension liability. So that accounts for some of that. And next year, I would anticipate to see a decrease in that category. Public Works, we have a $3.6 million decrease. And again, kind of going back to the capital projects are more multi-year projects. So a lot of projects are budgeted in 18-19. They're going to be carried over, such as the bridges, the rework of the bridges down on the beach trail. I think some of the restrooms are in there. So that is kind of a lot of that increase or that decrease. So just kind of a high-level snapshot of what's actually going on in those. As you can see, the rest of the departments are kind of in line with the previous year, so not too much changes there. And again, just because general government, we had the big decrease, I did want to go through a little bit more specifically what's occurring in the general government. The interfund transfers total $1.8 million. Again, $1 million of that is related to reserve transfers, and that's identified in the budget overview, but that also came from the 2019 LTFP. We're doing the annual $750,000 transfer to the Street Improvement Fund. Within that general government number is also the CASA animal shelter costs. We have general liability fund charges of $2.3 million, and that's going over to the liability fund. Legal related and other lobbying amounts account to about $1.6 million, and that's going back to the toll roads and some of those related costs. And other amounts in that category are the DVA for $32,000. That's flat with the previous year. Social services, and that's a variety of programs, and that's about $88,000. And then council contingency is now at $52,000. Again, it used to be at $100,000, but since we added the deputy last year, some of those funds were utilized for the funding of that deputy, so that's remaining at $52,000. All right, and since public safety are some of the biggest costs in the general fund, we call these out a little bit more. Again, police services, $17.8 million. It represents approximately 27% of all the operating costs. The OCSD contract is about $16 million. Of that, the general fund is about 15.9 of it. So again, the vast majority of its general fund. The base level increases by approximately $360,000, or about 2.6. I think it's slightly higher than 2.6, but it's like 2.63 or 2.67. Again, that's no service level increase, but it does maintain the 2 deputy officer positions added in the previous year. We have incorporated $150,000 for the labor negotiations process, and again, just calling out the UAL payment. It includes the 1.3 of that, and it's actually 1.25, but I rounded up to 1.3. So,
and Jay, can you highlight? I mean, and I think we've talked about this with the council before, but about 2 or 3 years ago, that specific ULA payment was in the $400,000 range, and in the course of the last 3 years, we've seen it jump up to over $1 million.
Yeah, it was, I want to say, like around $360,000, and over the last couple of years, it has jumped up to the 1.2, 1.3, and they're anticipating, just because of actuarial assumption changes, that to increase a little bit more, which is why we're also trying to take steps to, and why we put the pension update paper together, to hopefully keep those costs down in the future to help our future operating positions. All right. On to fire and ambulance for public safety. Again, that represents about 16% of operating costs. It's about $10.7 million. We have the OCFA base contract, about $9.3 million. It increases by about $639,000, which includes the 4.5% increase. It's the maximum increase allowed under the contract. No service level change, but it includes the phase-in of the 4th firefighter costs. The CARE ambulance services contract, that is approximately $1.3 million. The ambulance program budget increases about $71,000, and it includes 2 full-time ambulances. So again, those at 27% and 16%, as you can see, are a substantial part of the general fund operating costs. Now, a lot of times you're wondering where we are as of the end of the year. Again, we're funding the emergency reserve. We're anticipating the emergency reserve to be about $13.4 million. The unassigned fund balance will be decreasing from $7 million to about $3.4 million, again, utilizing for one-time costs or transfers to reserves or other related things. Some of the other governmental fund highlights, we have the street improvement and gas tax funds. Again, just based on their name, they're primarily going for street amounts. Camino de las Maras is included on that. We have the AQMD fund, which is currently helping fund some of the San Clemente trolley operation. We have the police grants fund, which is funding the other portion of the sheriff's contract. We have Parks Acquisition Development Fund, the Linda Lane Park Restroom Capital Project. And then I added this one. There's not really much activity going on there, but we have the Reserve Capital Projects Fund, and that fund balance ends at 12.2. I believe 2 years ago, again, before our $5 million transfers, that was approximately around $7 million. So that's where that funding has gone, and setting aside for future projects.
Mayor. Jake, one quick question. On the street improvement funds and projects, is there any decision packages in here on that?
Not on those ones. What we do have is we have a list of the decision packages at the end, and we can kind of go through all the different decision packages.
All right, I just want to make sure we weren't missing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so enterprise funds, the highlights, again, the focus recently have been on water and sewer funds. Again, those are a substantial portion of the enterprise funds. We, in previous years, completed the water cost of service study and implemented a new rate structure. We're anticipating an increase of approximately 9% on January 1st. Sewer rates are currently in process to get a cost of service study completed, and that would be implemented in 1920 fiscal year. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tom Vonnegut to go through some of the capital project activity.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. Tom Vonnegut, Public Works Director. I just want to make a few key points about the proposed capital improvement program, and I only have one slide. As you saw in the budget book, for fiscal year 20, we're proposing 60 new projects with a collective value of about $21 million spread throughout different categories like water, sewer, storm drain, streets, etc. The big winner next year will be in the water fund. The single largest project we're planning is a complete replacement of the Villa Blanco pump station that serves Reservoir 9. This is on our potable water system, almost a $3 million project just by itself. Arguably, the most visible project that we'll expect to see is the complete reconstruction of Camino de las Maras from the I-5 freeway to Avenida Vaquero. Per year prior direction, that will include complete redo of the landscaping and the medians. And so the budget does request an additional $1 million. This is gas tax money coming from the increased gas tax to supplement the existing gas tax. We're probably looking at close to $2 to $2.5 million project. As we've been studying this more, we have to do a lot more reconstruction on the outside number 3 lanes that get a lot of truck traffic. But that also will then serve per your prior direction as we get through, and we will still go through a very public process with Planning Commission and yourselves to approve the landscaping concept. Use that as the template to redo other medians and start phasing out the colored concrete and different types of stamping patterns and get to hopefully a new consistent approach that we implement over time. At your LTFP, Long-Term Financial Plan meeting in March, when we talked about the proposed Del Mar project, you asked staff to take a hard look about and look at the feasibility of saving the trees. As you recall, we were thinking we might need to replace those trees, which are largely carrot woods and New Zealand Christmas trees. So we have taken a deeper dive with our arborist, and we do think now kind of a best guess is that the trees have a shelf life of 10, maybe to 15 years. Nothing drastically has changed since we talked to you in March. We still have underlying concerns about the tree, and they're really root bound, and they have a shallow root system. So the concern and what was driving it was they might be susceptible to blowing over in a windstorm, but we haven't had that issue, fortunately. The trees are relatively happier than they've ever been because we've had more rain than in the past several years. They're looking pretty good. And we're also going to reconfigure the electrical design to abandon the system that's under the sidewalk, go through the street, which also minimizes the impacts to the trees. So unless you direct otherwise, it's our intent to take the trees out of the scope of work. We're just going to keep those healthy. We'll cross that bridge in a decade or so when we have to make a bigger decision, and the project will be a electrical design, and we'll try and time it with a paving project. I have been coordinating with the board of the DBA, and I'll probably give an update to the general membership at their June meeting, really to start talking about potential impacts and, is there a good time of year? And the feedback we're getting initially is, hey, if you're going to do this, the relatively least disruptive time of year is after the holidays, first quarter of the calendar year, maybe even going out to Memorial Day, then cut it out. So I don't know if we'll be ready to do that by the first quarter of 2020 coming up. If we're not, I think we can wait one more quarter and we'll go in 2021, but we'll update you. But we do want to minimize the disruption. When it's all done, though, it'll look pretty nice, Del Mar down there. And it'll have a system that can serve the electrical needs for special events and holiday lighting. Finally, I wanted to run through this. We'll see if it works as well as it did in my trial run. I just wanted to point out that we're trying to provide information in a more consumer-friendly format for the public, and so we have these project sheets, the same sheets that are now in your budget book here. The idea is to use this as a vehicle to keep the public informed, so when you get out to our city webpage, all you need to do is, where's the menu here? There it is. You click on current projects. This takes you to a landing page. It does two things. Planning has also implemented a really cool online map to show active development projects. But the first link here takes you to our CIP map. You get a quick little instruction box that you can click through. Oh, that's great. It's not available. Never mind. We're going to go there. See? Murphy's Law. Okay, we won't do that. Anyway, what will happen is an aerial map of the city comes up, and it has dots according to our 6 project categories. And then from there, all you do is click on a dot. You get the sheet in the book. And right now, it has all the financials. It tells you who the city staff person is that was responsible for that job with their phone number, so you can call for more questions and you know who's on point for that project. And then as we get into the construction, the bottom of the sheet, now in your budget book, it says proposed. That's the status. When we get going, we'll update that, and you'll know the current status of the project. And all you have to do is navigate through the city webpage. And so we're looking for feedback. That's a further tweak of last year, and we hope that'll be a good venue with all of our CIP program. If anyone has a question about, well, what are you doing? It's also mapped to your street, so even if you don't know the name of a project, you can zoom in and you'll start seeing colored boxes to know what's going on near where you live. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Is this where we talk to you about streets?
If you like, sure.
Okay. Can you point out in the budget where the repaving of the North Beach area is? What
Right.
page?
So we have a group. It's let me get to the page. It's likely our fiscal year 20 arterial pavement maintenance. I'll tell you the page in a second.
Okay.
Kathy, while we're looking, can I step on your toes real quick?
Is
Can I
what?
interject real quick?
Sure.
So Kathy's referring to this packet that we got last minute from the North Beach Community Association, and it's a reference to counted roughly 100 signatures on here, petition to restripe the El Camino Real roadway from Avenue to Pico to roughly Avenue to El Portal, from a 4-lane thoroughfare to a 3-lane, more business and residential friendly sub-arterial, essentially. And so I'm going to be supportive of it. I'm hoping that's what you're going to bring up and say you're supportive of it, and hopefully
It
give
is.
staff
I'm
direction
somewhat
tonight.
familiar with it. Luckily, on Boca de la Playa, we have an engineer that lives on that street and kind of looked at it and shot me a concept of it. And I know Tom has gone through it with them and is somewhat, staff is in favor of it. I think it provides more parking also.
It won't
Or-
change the parking, but it will
Okay.
change the road dynamics. So if, to answer your question, so on page 238 of the budget book, there's a project sheet entitled Arterial Street Pavement Maintenance Fiscal Year 2020. and that has a description. And included in that project, which is a super project of a number of street segments, is North El Camino Real from Pico to roughly Valencia, a lot of El Camino Real basically, where we'll do crack sealing, pavement failure repairs, and slurry seal. And then, of course, when we finish up the project, we restripe it. And the default plan is to go back and stripe it how it is. What council members are discussing is we were approached by representatives of the North Beach Community Association or North Beach Association with an idea on part of that segment on El Camino Real from Pico to roughly El Portal, past the Boys and Girls Club up there. When we restripe it, because this project is in the budget that your council would consider and direct us to look in more detail about a lane reduction and going from 4 lanes to 2 with a center turn lane and provide bike lanes and then keep the parking lanes. We have preliminary looked at it, checked the traffic counts. It looks like it works. We think it's a good idea, but we suggested the community to gauge the support to, reach out to you and see if you wanted to give us that direction. And it's coming up because that street is planned in the next fiscal year. And really, to restripe it in a different configuration is an insignificant cost. So if we're going to do something and it works, this would be the time to do it.
What's the cost? You said
Significant.
It is
Approximately
insignificant
what it
because
is.
I'm putting striping back. So to put striping back in a different configuration is at this point, it may not even be any change to the dollar amount. It doesn't change the projected budget that we're proposing tonight.
So would that come back to council closer to the time, or
Yeah,
we
and
just?
in talking to staff before this meeting, I think all we're going to do is give direction this evening, and depending on what Joanne wants, if it's a motion or just direction for staff to initiate this project.
Yes,
in
just
this way.
Just like we do with other proposed projects. In fact, last night, the proposal that came to you and we talked about Veracruz and the lane reduction.
Mm-hmm.
We would go through the process, go to Planning Commission, seek public input, get a recommendation. So you would see it before it goes out to bid. We're just, do you want us to look at it more formally? That's all.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be in favor of that.
Let's do a motion.
So I move that the city council directs staff to dive deeper into this restriping of North El Camino Real between Avenida Pico and El Portal and expand that if necessary.
I'll second that.
I would think that if somebody wants to just talk on it, maybe it's a good idea. Go ahead and get it.
So we'll wait until after public comment to make this, but we'll revisit that.
Okay.
So
I have a question about the streets,
Please.
if I may. There's so much to get through in such a short amount of time, like 5 days, 2 agendas basically, and this. So I can't find in my notes where I put my wrote down the page number, Mr. Vonnegut, but I wrote on here a note that we have, is it 2 million less in street repairs? Does that ring a bell to you? And if so, why?
No, that's not ringing a bell, but I have to go to
Okay.
the summary sheet and then come back to you to see what that might be.
Okay, and do you know if there's any discussion of doing a street improvement program again?
Oh, what you're referring to is we have a street improvement program, but probably the assessment district portion. And
Is that
no,
expired?
so we, just for the quick background, what we're talking about here is the city used to have an assessment district where properties would get charged, and a portion of that would fund our street program combined with general funds. That expired several years ago, maybe already 3 or 4 or 5 years in that time range. And at that time, we looked pretty hard at doing again. That program was established before Proposition 218. It was a 20-year program. And basically, the long story short is that we couldn't, and our consultant, we couldn't find a way to structure a defensible program that met the special benefit tests in Proposition 218. And we could not find any other city that has successfully done that. One city tried, and they failed and were called out because they didn't meet that test. So we recognized that we couldn't do it, and so we started a whole different approach of trying to be, frankly, more miserly and smarter about how we do it with more slurries and stretching the limited dollars we have. So,
Okay, so we're fully funded on our street repair
yes, in
account,
fact, we
so-
could. I would offer to you, I think we're in really good shape. It's evidenced by our pavement condition index. We'll be reporting that to OCTA shortly, and so Overall, right now, except for some problem streets, which we are trying to tackle, I'm pretty confident we're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. And one more question, if I may. Where are the gas tax funds located in the report that you mentioned?
So we have two flavors, but they're in, you'll find them on the sheet for Fund 0111. Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're looking at Laura, I got the page you're referring to with the streets. No, the page you're referring to that you asked Tom about. So, yeah, page 130 is, and what she's referring to, Tom, I think, is that if you look at the last 3 years on here, we did have a spike in the last 2 budget years of $1 million, which would represent a 30% increase. And so it looks like we are seeing a reduction of roughly $1 million. But I would venture to say that increase, just off the top of my head, is from major thoroughfare replacement we did, like on Hermosa, Pico, and La Plata. Things of that
It
nature.
varies according to when we have a big project, and then some years we have a little bit less. And what I advise councils is it will go up and down, and it's okay to save up a little fund balance, especially because we don't have that assessment district that we essentially piggy bank for the next cycle. Whereas before we had a more stable revenue stream, we would kind of strive and do a certain amount of pavement repairs and to keep a certain level of reserve. That goes up because in any given year I may not spend much, and it's all driven by our pavement condition and where the street needs are.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, oops. Sorry, wrong way. All right, so some of the budget enhancements that were incorporated into the budget this year, so these are actually already in the budget, and these are outlined a little bit more on page 43. I forgot the page number on this one, but the lettering is a little small, but you can see the general fund enhancements that we've included are on this page. We have ongoing ones, such as the enhanced trash janitorial service at events, sand pushing, and sun protection rash guards for the junior lifeguards. Again, all those costs are identified, and you'll see those those were all identified on the green sheets that were actually in your guys' budget. The other one-time costs, we have the utility vehicle, San Clemente Aquatic Center, and Ole Hansen Beach Club, replacement pool covers, Christmas wreath, Ole Hansen palm trees, wireless master plan, again, one-time cost, site-specific master plan studies, and police department improvements. So the general fund total of items that are included are $357,000, and those, again, are included in the general fund numbers that are before you right now. So I'll move on to the other funds. The other fund enhancements, we have things coming from the IT strategic plan, which are one-time, and that's the EDMS system. We have cameras and preventative maintenance, GIS data and imagery, and then we have other one-times. And again, you'll see on the right-hand side on these ones, the funds that are being affected by these ones. We have balloting and marketing for the Clean Ocean fee, funding to replace dump trucks, existing trencher, folding machine, and a plotter scanner for public works. So these are all just one-time items that are included in the budget before you. And that total is $301,000. And the total, as identified on page 43, is $659,100. So unless council has any questions on those, we do have staff here to answer any questions that you might have on those.
Oh, I have a question, if I may. The balloting for Clean Ocean fee renewal, that's a mail ballot. I wonder, since we have to do either a mail ballot or a special election, if we can combine those. That's in the next fiscal year, 1920, correct?
We talked about it today in our department head meeting, and we're trying to figure out if we can get prepared in time and have it ready to go.
Mm-hmm. What's the deadline to do the Clean Ocean fee mail ballot?
We would have to check the elections code because there's some certain dates for mail ballot elections. I know the vacancy, qualified.
Okay, well, thank you.
There's a lot of things to
you're
look
looking into it. That'd be great to save some costs if possible. Thanks.
The fee sunsets June of 2020, so we have a little bit of time.
Okay, it's too early. It'd be too early, right, Mr. Rebenstorf? too early
I think
this
you
year?
could still potentially do the ballot, but I'm not sure if we'll be ready in time.
Okay,
by
thank you.
November. Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead, keep those in the budget, and then, again, staff is constantly reviewing things to bring before City Council. The City Council decision item, this is not actually incorporated in your budget, and it was the yellow page that you were giving. What we did run into is there's some vacancies in the Public Works area. Again, the decision package outlines most of this. It would be adding a couple of positions and removing a couple positions, and the net effect would be a savings of about $60,000 and an FTE change of about 0.5 FTE. So that one, after public hearing, we'll get council's direction on that, whether we should incorporate that in the final budget that we bring before you. So with that, any other questions or comments, we can go ahead and address them. So, all right. And I think we are on to the public hearing at this point. And again, resources, I'll stick this up there. All the information is available on the city website, and budget adoption would be June 4th. So with that, I'll go back to the, it's the next council meeting. So.
So open the public hearing. And first is going to be Brad M., which I assume is Mr. Malamud, followed by Nyla Stickle, and then Ken Nielsen.
I thought you were going to make it, Brad.
I got back from LA early. To your pleasure, Chris. Welcome, everybody. I hope you all got more sleep than I got last night. I want to start with, I've never been to one of these before. I thought it was very enlightening. Staff did a great presentation, but to me it's all gobbledygook. This isn't how anybody else would budget. You know, what you do is set priorities and you work from there down and see what's left. I want to tell this city that we are under-sheriffed. Last year we claimed we added 2 full-time employees. We didn't. We took away overtime and just substituted. The sheriffs need a lot more money. We talked all last night about the homeless problem, which needs more sheriff. We have crime. 160 homes were burglarized last month. On an annual basis, that's 8% of all of our homes. Is that really the city we want? We need more sheriff. We need a whiteboard sheriff's increase of at least 25%, I hope more, and work the way down from there. And if we have to cut other programs, we just cut $6.4 million, boom, in general funds. $6.4 million, nobody cares. It's just gone. I remember I told you that we were spending $6 million more per year than we had. Now we made the cut this year to balance budget. We do. We transferred into reserves. You can look at the 2 items. They're on page 105 of your report. You'll see where all cuts came from. Staff, we increased 8% this year, expenditures. But sheriffs, they may have increased whatever, 3-4%. We need more sheriff, and you need to find a way to do that. And you need to cut everything else necessary, because if we don't have safety, our kids can't walk on the beach, we can't walk on the trails, there's needles everywhere. This should be about how we fund the sheriffs. Then secondarily, Chris, in the fire department, that's another safety issue. And then what's left is what we do. That's what government's supposed to provide the citizens, is safety. And those are the 2 main services. Everything else is supplementary. When I looked at this, I couldn't see that slide presentation, but as far as I can tell, we haven't funded for the $300,000 special election. We haven't funded for the $3 million, which is 2.1 plus 1.2. I'm a little shorting it, for the homeless shelter. So we're now $3,300,000 in the hole if you adopt putting up a temporary homeless shelter next year. I haven't seen that accounted for. Where's that coming from? So it saddens me, because this city's done everything they can not to increase revenue over the years. We've stopped businesses from coming in. We've not created a hotel zone, which would create the most taxes we could do. I suggested it, and the comments back to me is, we're not going to do that in this town. Why? Bringing in hotels is a great way to raise revenue. It's the only way I know, unless you want to bring in car dealerships. That's not going to happen. So, you know, we need to look at the revenue side, because I didn't hear one word about how we're going to increase revenue going down the line. And if you guys want to spend money, you got to have the revenue for it. It's the only solution is to increase revenue or decrease expenses. So I'm asking you to stop right now, start whiteboarding the sheriff and the fire department. Let's see what's left for the rest of the staff. Finally, we need to cut from the city manager's department. 5 years ago, we didn't have an assistant city manager and assistant. We didn't have a legislative analyst. That's about $500,000 or $600,000 we could use for sheriff. I could look at other departments do the same thing. Have those departments suggested where we can make cuts because we're needed desperately. And I'm not against staff. I just think sheriffs are more important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malamud. Next is Nyla Stickle, followed by Ken Nielsen, and then Derek Greer.
I got to step in here for a second, Dan. While unfortunately, Mr. Malamud.
Sorry, can we get through staff comments, or sorry, public comments first? Can we just do that before we get to the?
I can't. Well, Brad doesn't have his cheering audience here tonight, unfortunately for him. I have to correct a couple statements he made. The first one is that he said that we've stopped business and that we've stopped hotels in the city of San Clemente. Since my time on city council, we've built an outlet mall. We've converted the Kmart Center into 3 medium box stores. We've created a new hotel that's coming to town. On top of creating the new hotel, we've gone back to the owner of the hotel and asked them to expand their rooftop deck operations to make it a more palatable, more enjoyable experience for people. We've done a lot in this city to increase business. Unfortunately, the revenue stream hasn't continued with the increase in business that we've seen, and that's not our fault. So those false statements are just that, false statements, and Brad likes to come up here and make false statements, but I had to correct them, so that was it.
Great, thanks, Ms. Stickle. Followed by Ken Nielsen, followed by Derek Greer.
I have pictures. These two, the first two they're showing are last summer. They're old, peak season, right where on Del Mar, where you got off on the trolley. This isn't going to help us bring in tax revenue to our city. I was ashamed to get off that trolley with my granddaughter and see this, which she refers to San Clemente as olive land. The next one is the next one after that, please. Oh, the newspaper racks. We have these. These are just, and I wanted to put in perspective the area of the pictures I'm showing you is 1 block from Ola Vista to El Camino Real on the north side of the street. This is blight. Could I have the next one, please? This is only exception. This was my view sitting out at Antoine's. And the next one, please. Oh, these, this is not a financial issue or a budget issue, but there's 11 of these on one side of the street on 1 block. And the flower baskets. Who takes care of the flower baskets on Del Mar? Is that DBA? So city waters them.
No, the DBA.
And who plants them?
I believe they're all, originally Michael Kopp was the originator of those hanging plots, and then the DBA made
They're horrid. They need to be redone. And the next one, please. Oh, now on an up note, this is a good one though. I know you're shaking your head, but this is the only bench on Del Mar that doesn't need to be refinished because the back of it's gone that needs to be refinished. Did it go in to get refinished and never put back on? I have no idea.
Do we know?
I'd ask Tom Vonnegut to respond since he's in charge of
Well, I
the
have one for
maintenance.
Tom. I think I found money in the budget, and that's this one right here. And I'm saying this really as a joke because I don't want to be serious the whole time. All the bump outs that we've lived through, who knew you could use a sandwich board as a bump out? I mean, that just saved us millions. Bulb out. Like on El Camino Real, where we're all. So maybe we found some money in the budget for that. And that's it. So I do have some concerns about the continuing money budgeted for the DBA. I'm not saying not to budget them, but what I am saying is they're not doing their part to maintain downtown.
So I'm the representative on the DBA. I'll talk to them about these issues, and we'll see what we can get addressed for you.
Have they ever been audited?
I don't know if they've been audited.
I don't believe they have. That would be something that they would do independently of the city.
Can we set some expectations if we give them more money?
We'll talk to them, and we'll address that. Try to address
There's
that.
a lot more out there. That's just one side of one street.
Thanks, Nyla. I appreciate it. Thank you. Sure. Yeah.
So the bench answer, this is something we've been looking at as a city. Staff's been looking into finding a suitable material that will work on the back of the benches that can't be damaged, that'll last longer. And so that's the reason they haven't replaced it with similar wood structure that's just going to be damaged in the same way. So once we find something that's suitable, it'll be replaced.
Perfect. Thanks, Mr. Nielsen.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for letting me speak. I respect the Orange County Sheriff's Department a lot. But there's such a long response time now in our neighborhood, up to an hour and a half when you call them. We have no parking enforcement at all in my neighborhood, except street sweeping day. Cars parked on the corners, complete sidewalks blocked with cars. It's coming to the point where we need vigilante action to deal with the problems. We've actually done that in our neighborhood. And then we call the police, and a half an hour later they show up, and they don't do anything. They talk to them and take them home. Something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but they're not doing the things that I think they should do. I know the laws have been changed, and it's only a misdemeanor, but I brought a picture here of the guy that's been causing lots of problems in our neighborhood. We've called on him 5 times, and nothing's happened. Nothing at all. They take him home. The lady across the street called on him twice when he was imposing on a neighborhood house, and they said, "Oh, he's just mental. Don't worry about it." This guy's a kook, let me tell you. We actually got him on the ground and tie wrapped him for 30 minutes till the police got there, and he didn't even get. He was tied up. The guy was so screwed up. But what's going on? Have the laws changed? Is there I know the sheriffs. My business partner is an Orange County sheriff. They do what they have to do, or they do what they're told. Something's going on. I don't know what it is, but they're not doing anything in my neighborhood. I live in Barrio Chico. Do you know where that is? It's one of the neighborhoods that are a problem in San Clemente. We just had a stabbing in that neighborhood, a gang stabbing. This guy of this picture says he's a member of the Barrio Chico gang, and he knows everybody here, and he runs the place, so they can't do anything to him. I ain't buying that. I mean, if the police won't do anything to him, we're going to take care of it. And that's not what it's supposed to be like. And Brad talked about the 25% increase in the sheriff. We need more sheriffs. If you have the sheriffs, they'll do the job. I guarantee you they'll do it, but we don't have them. We need enough. You got to find the money somewhere, wherever that may be. Let's see. One more thing. This is a diploma I got from the ethics class that we used to take. Are we still taking the ethics class now? Yep. From what I've been seeing and what I've watched, we haven't been taking it. I hope everybody's taking these ethics classes. All the committees and everyone takes this. I took it every year for 20 years, and I learned a lot. I learned what the Brown Act is and what it means and everything else from these classes. So I hope that we can do something about that. And let's get some more sheriffs and also find out why they're not doing anything. They're just we had a lady come down in the middle of the night screaming and yelling, stripped naked, and take across from my house and take a shower in the middle of the night. Stripped naked, yelling and screaming. The police came. It took them a while, but it was 10 o'clock at night. They talked to her. She's from out in the desert somewhere. And all they said was, just don't come around here anymore. Go somewhere else. What's wrong? Why isn't this lady being arrested? So it seems like the same problem with the homeless people. And I know they got lawsuits to deal with and all that, and maybe they can't do it, but we need more sheriffs right away. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Thanks, Ken.
Ken, can you please not go away yet? We know the issue with misdemeanors and the problem of enforcement. So the city has hired, I think for the last year and a half, Matt Silver is an attorney that's been prosecuting the misdemeanors. So what I would like, James, is can Matt get with this neighborhood and talk to them? And because I was told of this issue and yesterday, so this man might already be on their radar, some of these issues, but I want to make sure that they are. So
he's not the only one. He's just one. I got pictures of.
Can you arrange for your neighborhood to meet with them?
The chief came and talked to us right after this issue. Okay. But we got this, the standard neighborhood watch talk, which we can give. We've had neighborhood watch members for as long as there's been a neighborhood watch. And neighborhood watch is wonderful, but if the police don't show up when you got a problem, or if they show up and don't do anything, it ain't working. So it's going to end up. We've got two Navy SEALs in our area. Believe me, all I got to do is whistle, and I got the Army on my side.
I just want to make sure that that he's aware of these issues because there's maybe
Right.
he can step in and
And
try
the
to-
parking too. You know how much we fought for the commercial vehicle parking? There's trucks all over our streets with ladders on them, all the time.
Thanks,
There's
Ken.
sidewalks, block grant sidewalks, with cars parked across them all the time in the neighborhoods where there's millions of kids. Why? Why aren't they ticketing those cars?
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
I don't want to interrupt you because you'll stick the seals on me, but
Ah,
gotta
hey, thank
move
you so
on.
much.
Thank you. Next is Derek Greer, followed by Randall Barba, and then Steve Crape.
Council be okay if I pass these out? I apologize. I made an error in getting a slide up on the screen for you guys here. Sorry, there's 4 of them right there. So, yes, my name is Derek Greer. I'm on the DBA Board of Directors. I'm the Vice President. I'm here representing the DBA and the Downtown Business Association. I want to start off by first saying thank you guys so much for your continued support over the past. It's been, bring a little positivity to the group here today, that it's been actually a really positive relationship moving forward, and we only want to make that better. So real quick, we already kind of know what we are, but we're a 501(c) nonprofit organization dedicated to the downtown area. The Board of Directors, I have some representatives here today, and our members are primarily representing the T-Zone and retail services, restaurant, nonprofits, et cetera. I'm moving pretty quick because this clock is ticking. Our continued partnership, what are the benefits? So there's some pictures in here. I'm going to just run off the events that you guys already know. San Clemente Annual Car Show that's coming up, a very famous event for San Clemente in general as the city. In fact, rarely does the DBA even get credited. It usually comes up being the city, which we're fine with that. We want that. Santa's Village by the Sea, which is also called the Glitz, another event that we are responsible for putting together and put on. Monthly Village Art Fair. That happens every month. That is our organization as well. Treat Street and Shop Small. So those are the main events that we do. We also do quite a bit of other things for the city, and I'm just going to go through these briefly. So increased sales tax revenue for the city. That's the bottom line, and that's been a topic that's brought up multiple times today. Bringing revenue to the city is also making it a place that people want to come, not only for residents, but also attracting other people from the state and the country. Family-friendly fun and community engagement. No other events in San Clemente. I shouldn't say that, but there are some other. But we are the main, big, large downtown events that are family-friendly fun. It's good marketing for the city. Provides needed exposure for small downtown businesses like myself. I run a business in the downtown T-Zone, Edward Jones. Through our partnership, we've actually been ranked in the past as the #1 downtown in Southern California. So while there are concerns in the downtown area, we also are very positive in that position. We are responsible for the beautification of Del Mar, weekly plant watering and maintenance for the entire street. Those pictures were actually from 2018, and we have actually been representing the downtown and working with you guys directly to make that continue to be part of our plan. And we actually, as a nonprofit, we put back $7,200 a year into the downtown area, into the T-Zone, into Del Mar. That's not city funds that is being reimbursed. That is money that's coming from our nonprofit business, going directly back to the city. So survey results are in, very positive. Love the crowd we draw. All of this really directly and indirectly, thanks to our partnership, has positively affected our city's economic business development. So 10 seconds for the ask. Our ask today is total annual city partnership funds budget request of $40,000 for fiscal year 2019 and 20. If additional documentation is needed, for approval, DBA's budget can be provided and will be provided. There was an audit mentioned. We'd be happy to provide the budget and historical finances, which we have documentation for. So that's our ask there. We have been, since this last year, on a decrease over the years because of a lack of communication from all parties, and we are here now representing as the board to be more engaged and work with you guys in partnership. Two more asks here is pole banners to help provide promotion for city events and trolley brochures. Thank you guys so much.
Derek, I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
The newsstands that were referenced in the last slideshow, do you guys collect a revenue from those?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Newsstands that were...
No, that is not ours. In fact, we worked with Tom Bonnegat, with Mr. Bonnegat, and we tried to figure out whose responsibility those was, and we actually couldn't find out. But it's not any direct responsibility or any responsibility we've had in the past, and so that was discussed, and we're not sure what to do, but we can help that if need be.
The record is unclear. about who's responsible for the news racks. We agree that they're not being used correctly and there's damage. So I asked Tom a few weeks ago to work with the DBA in the future to determine, are those news racks even needed? Can they be removed? And have that conversation if the DBA still wants them there on Del Mar, or if they can come out. We've also talked about,
we don't need them.
There we go.
And so maybe we can remove them. We've also talked about the benches. Those are teak. We put a lot of money into them every year to refinish them. I've spoken to a certain DBA member that has told me over his dead body, will those benches be removed? But there are other options out there that might be easier to maintain.
I don't think that DBA member exists anymore. He must be a pest because that's not that's not a conversation. Okay.
Okay. And our current budget, I think, for DBA is $32,000 is what we have in this year's budget. We also provide $26,000 in sidewalk cleaning funds, and
not to us.
Well, that's what we provide to help clean
to the city, yes, but not to the DBA. Just to be clear.
Yes, and then we also provide. I just want to show what the total amount of funds, and we also provide about $30,000 to the sheriff's department for the chamber's fiesta event in August, so that we can staff that because of the beer gardens and some of the issues.
So that's actually a perfect example. $30,000 for the one event that the chamber does, and we hold a monthly event plus two major events plus two other ones that go throughout the year, and we're getting a total of $32,000, and we're giving $7,200 back to the city directly in maintenance for the plants.
Thanks, Derek.
I was going to finish that.
the glitz.
There is a chance that the chamber will not have the fiesta this year because this year the brewery that they've had in the past has decided to charge them for the beer. And without free beer, the event becomes very expensive for them to hold, and they're not sure if they want to hold it based on their costs going up. So that $30,000 that we budget for the sheriff's department might become available. But at this time, I don't know that it has become available.
So, James, the glitz, we also pay for extensive sheriff overtime for that, I believe also. And that's directly the DBA. I don't know what the cost is on that. But I wanted to comment on the racks. Some of them might not be taken care of, and I don't know which ones those are, but I know racks for like the San Clemente Journal, those are, and that's very popular. Those magazines are popular throughout our city. So I don't know where they would be if they weren't downtown. But maybe we don't have to have so many racks, for all the little circulars. I don't know. But
we'd be happy to look into that and support how we can make that work.
I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but I've mentioned in the past that I would like to create a downtown business improvement district, and I know that this is going to get booed and hissed, so bring it. A potential way to fund it and provide more amenities in the downtown is through parking meters there.
But that it's a revenue source, and I know you're looking at it. So the 8,000, for me, I think we'd have to have more documentation on why it's needed for us. We couldn't tonight say
absolutely
that we're going to do it. And then the other questions on the banners and the trolley brochures, that has to be taken up at another time also. That has to go through the normal channels. So we couldn't do it tonight. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I think part of it was to not be able to go through the detail of our budget right now in 3 minutes. So the idea was just to hopefully allow you guys the opportunity to review that in consideration of our ask.
Great.
Okay,
thank you.
And I guess we give direction, like we did earlier, we can give some kind of direction there to bring it back and look at it. So, sorry, so the next is it Randall? Riddell. Apologies.
All righty then. Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Riddell Barba, a San Clemente resident. I'm also wearing my lucky San Clemente shirt. I got that going for me. I'm the professional pickleball instructor for the Parks and Rec Department since 2016. Almost 3 years ago, I started pickleball for this great city of San Clemente. I've taught over 500 students in our classes. And the good news is probably 90% of residents. Many are here this afternoon. Thank you. All right, shush. What I'd like to see you do is please look at the statistics. Give pickleball consideration for the future budget for the Parks and Recreation. Thank you. I'm done.
I have a question, real quick, Riddell. Unfortunately, with the passing of our mayor, some of the constitutional or the information that was gathered by him with you at previous meetings may not have been shared. And I heard through the rumor mill that potentially your group offered money to restripe some additional courts.
That's correct. We can raise the money.
Is that still on the table?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. That's all I need to know.
Thank you.
Steve?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Steve Crapo, and I'm a proud resident of San Clemente. I'm also a kinesiology instructor and coach at Saddleback College. And the reason I'm here, I'm also representing this large group of pickleballers here in San Clemente. My wife and I are both pickleball players here for about a year and a half. My wife is a teacher at San Clemente High School and coach as well. And we're just here trying to get some support to get some permanent courts here in San Clemente. Right now we have some temporary courts, and it's okay, but it's not what's needed. As Riddell was kind of mentioning, pickleball is the fastest growing recreational sport in the country. Over 3.2 million people are playing, and if you travel around to different places, especially vacation spots, the pickleball courts are springing up everywhere. And we've got a large group of people in San Clemente. As Rodell mentioned, he's been teaching here, and a lot of students fill up his class. I just finished my pickleball class at Saddleback College today. We see the importance and the growth of it as a college because on January 2020, we're starting a brand new tennis and pickleball complex, over $3.1 million that we're putting in because we see the growth and how that could increase student population at Saddleback College. And so I'm just here supporting Riddell and the rest of the people here and hoping that we can get some more finances to get some permanent courts here. I know we'd have to use probably some of the current tennis courts, and I know tennis is also very popular here. But like I said, I've lived here a long time. I've been by the tennis courts. We have some good tennis players, but a lot of times those courts are empty. We just need some more space, and we need some permanent situations. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Vern West, and then Mike Ray.
Aren't these budget meetings interesting? All those numbers, these accounting systems, GAAP, cash, smoke and mirrors, tax. It's all fun. I love it. I love it. Members of the City Council, my name is Vern West. I'm a 38-year resident, City of San Clemente, and I'm the founder of Silver Paddles. Silver Paddles is a group of seniors, 65 and years older, here in San Clemente, and they're interested in the promotion and enjoyment of, yes, that dreaded word, pickleball. This is what a senior pickleball player wears. So you can see that we're kind of loud, noisy, and we're going to be here at the meetings from now on. I just returned from Bend, Oregon, playing pickleball. Town, similar size to San Clemente. They advertise they have 2,800 players. Bend, Oregon doesn't have 12 months a year to play pickleball. It snows, it rains, it gets cold up there. This thing is going to explode here in San Clemente, and I'm concerned, and I want to help the city and the city council in their budget planning to provide for pickleball as it grows. It's going to explode. There's a recent article in the Kipchenger's Personal Finance magazine where they're talking about the explosion of pickleball with seniors, your parents. I want to get your parents out there with me in this group. You guys too, but we not want to play with you. Hey, listen, I'm 81 years old out there playing, and I play with people older than that. It's not limited to younger people. Today I'm speaking here primarily on the budget concerns going forward, and also for the City Council to direct Parks and Rec to restripe the second court at San Gorgonio. I know you did it at San Luis Rey, but that's a rabbit hole over there. San Gorgonio is a perfect place to provide the additional play-in. I was there today. We had people waiting to play because we only have the 4 courts. You can get 4 pickleball courts on 1 tennis ball court. The other thing is I would like to recommend the city offer classes for seniors 65 and older. It's a different game if I played you or I played your grandparents. So we need a little help on that area. I had a meeting with Samantha Wiley last week, and I suggested that she set up a steering committee made up of pickleballs, and I'd be happy to provide my time and experience in that, and we'll select people to advise Parks and Rec on pickleball. Samantha, who's the manager of the department, her assistant, they don't even know what pickleball is. They have never played it. So we want to give them some insight on what this thing is. It's going to get big, and it's going to become a budget item as we go forward. I want to thank the City Council. Sorry for your loss, my loss. And do you have any questions? I have a handout here that you can read at your leisure.
Sure. Do you want to leave with the, leave with the clerk?
And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mike Ray, and Lori Donchak, and then Marty Weinberg.
Boy, who knew pickleball was all the rage? Tonight I'm here to talk about and advocate for the hiring of additional sheriff deputies. Last night the City Council took a big step in the right direction by voting 4-0 to set up a temporary shelter on the city yard site off Pico. Thank you for taking this step. But this is only the first step and must be followed up immediately by hiring additional sheriff deputies so we can truly get a handle on this dangerous situation. To accomplish this, the Council needs to make public safety the #1 priority for the budget. Non-essential budget items and programs will need to be reduced, delayed, or canceled to fund the additional deputies. We need our deputies to have greater visibility and more presence in our city. After all, the #1 bullet point in the Council's mission statement is maintaining a safe, healthy atmosphere in which to live, work, and play. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of residents don't feel the atmosphere is either safe or healthy. Residents have stopped using public amenities such as the beach trail, public parks, public restrooms, the library, Amtrak station, the playground in North Beach. And I could go on, but I think you get the point. This is disgraceful and completely unacceptable, and it's happening on your watch. We need to immediately hire at least 10 additional deputies. That still won't bring us up to where we need to be when compared to our neighboring cities, but it's a good start. And no shell games like last year when the Council approved 2 additional deputies but slashed overtime budget by $250,000, resulting in no real gain. And also consider opening a sheriff's substation in a portable trailer in the North Beach parking lot. That will send a message that we are in control and give visitors to North Beach peace of mind. Years of misplaced compassion, underfunding of police services, and virtue signaling have all contributed to the dangerous situation we find ourselves in today. It's time for the City Council to take action and hire the additional sheriff deputies we so desperately need for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Lori? And then Marty Weinberg.
Okay. So I have a PowerPoint. Also, this is so cool. This is what Tom Vonnegut was talking about. And the project I'm speaking to is right there on the end of the pier. So that's a very cool innovation. Thank you. Anyway, my name's Lori Donchak, and I'm here as a board member for Peer Pride Foundation. Also with me are 2 other board members, Mickey Rathman and Jim Nielsen, in the audience. And what do I do this? Okay. We'll go fast. Okay, who are we? You know, but the audience may not know. We were founded 3 years ago, and our mission is to fill gaps between the city's budget and what is necessary to preserve the unique experience of the San Clemente Pier. And the need is great. There was a severe loss in our revenue stream when the redevelopment funds were discontinued in 2012. So that's why we're here. We're nonprofit. And we're 100% volunteer. Everything we do is volunteer hours from San Clemente residents. Just to let you know, we're really proud of our track record. We focus on capital projects as opposed to program. And in 2017, we had the pier sanded, primed, and painted with marine quality paint and raised the funds for that. This year, we just unveiled the educational signs over the weekend, and thank you to those council members that attended. I've gotten so many emails about what a facelift that is for the pier, so we're very proud about that. And pending approval, we've got fishing line recycling canisters that will put us in compliance with other piers across the state coming forward for your consideration, I think, next month. So we're here to talk about 2019, and it's in your CIP package. We want to help you refresh the pier bathrooms. And it was in that $2.1 million that Mr. Vonnegut was talking about. It's a $150,000 project you'll be contemplating. And let's see. What we'd like to offer is $50,000 toward that initiative. So we commit to raise, pure pride, right? Yeah. So our goal would be to raise funds for aspects of the restrooms that might improve the experience. You guys are in the business of safety and public accessibility. We want to just up the game a little bit. And so I know you can't give approval, but we'd like your consideration on a few things. And this first image is the starting point. That's the mainland-facing facade of the restroom. And our first proposal, we met with Randy Little and Tom Vonnegut, is to somehow move all of that off of the side of the bathroom and make it a branding opportunity. Okay, we just put the SC logo up there because it's on the trolley, but you could do whatever you wanted with it, but wouldn't that be cool? All right. A lot of the credit for these ideas comes from Redmond Schwartzmark's design. They did a visioning project for the pier. So what their vision is, refresh the painting, move that conduit, paint the trim of the restroom to match the railing instead of it just being black. Consider that storage door in the middle for public art. Consider lights that match the pier lights. Very important, insert the drinking fountain on the front facade that was somehow taken off over the years. Oh, okay. This is $50,000. Give me 30 seconds more. Okay.
Granted.
Okay. We want to do a public art initiative on that storage door, and pending your approval, we'd partner with the San Clemente Art Association or somebody. And we want to have you take a look at the interiors. This is one of the drinking fountain ideas we're interested in. It would have one of those bottle refill stations, okay? And so our proposal, which we have in paper here, is we will commit to giving you a check. Commit to giving you a check for $50,000 January 2020, assuming that CIP gets approved in June. And we'd like a portion of that, which Randy Little estimates at $10,000 for a facade-mounted drinking fountain with a bottle refill feature. And we'd like permission to explore public art as an element of the CIP package. And not up here is we'd like a portion of that money to go toward the skylights, which are in the restrooms, and put pigeon deterrents on there. So that's it. So next steps would be say yes to our money, and then approve that CIP project, and then give us guidance so that we don't step on anybody's toes in the process. And then for you to chew on, we would also raise money for you to replace the shower tower at the base of the pier, which is in desperate need, and also pier security cameras. You just let us know that that's your desire, and we'll get it done for you. That
Great.
concludes
Thank
our
you.
comments.
Lori. Appreciate it. Chris?
Lori, what do you know about those newspaper boxes on Del Mar?
Oh, she's right. They should.
The history, where'd they come from, who paid for them, who's
they were
responsible?
the DBA initiated them, and they were in response to the fact that, that little wire one that was in the visual the woman had, those were all over the Del Mar, and so the DBA, and it was part of Michael Kaup, thought, let's have one centralized place for media to live. And then what's happened is those little basket things have sprouted back up, and there's been a lot of vandalism, and also the use of paper media has declined. That's what I know.
I knew you knew. Thank you.
So, last speaker is Marty Weinberg.
Another pickleballer. Yeah, I'm getting there. Good afternoon, Council. I'm Marty Weinberg, and I'm here to discuss pickleball as well. From the local pickleball community, we are asking for your support and to include in the new budget funds to promote pickleball and to grow the sport in San Clemente. We realize that we're currently in a pilot program right now, and I'm not sure if anyone's capturing data on our temporary overcrowded courts, but know that pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States. Right now it's growing at 12% a year. That's 350,000 new players every year. And as far as San Clemente pickleball, we're growing as well. Every time I go out on the courts, there's new players. They're learning to play, and they're part of our group. I started pickleball about 2.5 years ago. I was in the first pickleball class that was offered by the city of San Clemente. There was 4 of us, all retired, and since that class, we've evolved from 4 to well over 150 people that are playing in San Clemente. And it's not just retirees, and it's not seniors. We're getting a lot of young adults now, and we're getting high school students and all those soccer moms, stay-at-home moms. And they don't want to stay at home anymore. They want to play pickleball, but they want to be able to play 7 days a week, not the current 5 that we have, and they want to play on permanent courts. So I feel that San Clemente has the opportunity now to provide permanent pickleball courts that we could play on 7 days a week, and we could play on dedicated courts in San Clemente. So here we are, just think about it. We have priority days right now, and we're always thinking, can we play pickleball today, or do we have to travel out of town to play pickleball? And then we have to worry about the tennis players, and we don't want to worry about tennis players, and I'm sure they don't want to worry about us as well. So the remedy is more pickleball courts, more days to play. I appreciate you allowing me to speak, and I hope you consider funding for pickleball courts in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Before I get into comments and questions here, I just want to commend everybody who came out this evening to participate in this public hearing and this process. I think this is the most...
Close it real quick. Close the public hearing.
Thank you. I think this is the most well-attended budget hearing I've had in my 7 years on council. So thank you, everybody who came and supported the various issues here this evening. This is the first time I've had 2 speakers come up and support our endeavor for more police officers, which was absolutely amazing. I've been looking for that for the last 7 years as well. So thank everybody for coming out. With that said, Adam, I've got a question for you. One of the concerns that somebody had about the downtown was the blight adjacent to the benches and on the sidewalks adjacent to the trolley stops. 2017, with the support of Lori Donchak, we added a no littering policy to businesses that were responsible for, I think it's a 500-foot radius. Does that include that disgusting, dark, sticky goo that comes out of the businesses that have ice cream or some sort of gelatin? Or is it only specific to the actual trash that they have in their area? And I know I'm putting you on the spot,
yeah.
So I'm not expecting you to have an answer.
No, it's okay. Adam Matamian, Code Compliance Manager. The code that you're referencing is related to trash and litter that comes from those establishments, but there are other codes that relate to the maintenance of sidewalks in front of a business, and that would include anything, even fruit and olive trees.
Okay. So my recommendation is it is blight on the city, and if we aren't addressing it now, I'd like to direct staff to start addressing those concerns in front of the businesses that do create that type of blight.
Are you thinking the ice cream? Because we've seen in the last 2 years since that one opened a definite increase.
Adam knows what I'm talking about. There's ice cream. There's other people who make other gelatinous type substances that create the same debris. So Nikki knows all the businesses I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Yeah, Adam, I'm not sure. Some of those shops, I don't know what we did.
Coffee shops as well.
To make them have service, inside, for seating. I think some of them don't even have it. And that's why they go and sit outside on the benches.
Well, we have gorgeous weather, too, so it's nice to walk outside.
Well, yes, I'm just wondering if since this is the budget meeting, the proper thing is to have Adam go take a look at that, just open up code enforcement files if there's a reason and an ability to do that, and then bring that back to us. I mean, I'm totally fine with that. If there's a code there and somebody's violating it, then...
Absolutely. That was it, Adam.
Okay.
Thank you.
Direction received. Thank you.
My next couple issues, these are more budget related. The news racks, if staff and the DBA can get together, determine what we're going to do with those things. I think I am going to echo Lori's sentiment of print media is going away the dodo birds, so I think it's time to get rid of those things, and then enforce the wire racks leaving. I noticed the one picture of wire racks was shown on private property, and that's something that's entirely acceptable. That's not what I'm directing.
Well, I was going to suggest
your mic's off.
If they want to keep them, put them in the in a business. Put them in somebody's lobby, and they want to maintain it, then they're responsible. So
I would venture to say that the one DBA member that's no longer a member would want one of them in his business because they do have some historic value. The next one is I want to give a shout out to the DBA for coming to the meeting this year. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks for taking the time. I'm sure that you guys are going to be sending us your annual budget as you did in years past. I look forward to seeing it. I'm going to be supportive of an increase. I don't know if $40,000 is appropriate. If what James says comes to fruition, we do have additional funding. Maybe we can look at a mid-year adjustment. But I was thinking more along the lines of $2,000 out of the council contingency, so that brings us down to $50,000, and that's raises them up to $34,000. I also want to give a shout out to the DBA and say that the Put on the Glitz is a combined event that is hosted by not only the DBA but also the city. So any fees we incur with that is something we would already incurred. So they've been a fantastic partner over the last 3 years. I want to continue to support them. The last ask, which was buried into the report that he didn't get to, was the pole sign issue. This is an issue that, picking on Lori again, Lori and I debated on many times that you've been supportive of, Dan, on my side, which is advertising on city property. And so I would ask that as a council we agendize that for discussion, because I think it's a fantastic opportunity within the confines of very finite rules for doing that. So, and
Hold on one second. Real quick question. What do we have on the pole signs now?
So
In the downtown?
Yeah, so essentially the chamber is running the show on those, and they do a fantastic job, by the way. Let's give a shout out to them as well with the Live and Love San Clemente campaign that they have. So I'm not proposing to take any of those down. There's some vacant spaces that we discussed in the past when I was the DBA representative, so there is some opportunity there to where we can infill some of those. I'm not asking for direction on that tonight. I'm asking for a bring back from staff in the future so we can do that moving forward to ensure the DBA's continued success.
If that's to be agendized, don't forget it needs a motion.
You want
Is
to
it
motion
to
that
be
one?
agendized?
Okay, so I'll make a
policy.
motion that we discuss pole signs in a future council meeting for the DBA.
And then if I can ask, well, you finish the vote, because
Sure.
we have two other unfinished items
So,
that we need to get votes on.
Motion by Councilmember Ham, second by me. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 4-0.
So you have two outstanding items that you waited until the conclusion of the public hearing. So the first one is you need to take a vote on the direction.
Oh, hold on. I'm not done yet, Eric.
Oh, you got more?
You're jumping the
Okay.
gun. You're jumping the gun. Yeah. My last item is, I don't think it needs a motion, but Joanne might think differently, is I was going to direct staff to continue the talks the mayor initiated with the pickleball group and let staff know that I'm supportive, and hopefully we have council support, that if the pickleball group does come up with a funding source to add the stripes for the pickleball court at their San Gorgonio location, I'm supportive of that.
Okay, so we went through this last year a long time, and we split San Luis Rey and San Gorgonio. And I need to hear from staff of where they want to change that, because I don't know that we can take away the tennis court completely away from San Gorgonio.
I'm glad you
meant.
clarified that. That's not what I'm saying. It would be a multi-use. So both tennis courts still remain. So there's no change in there. It's just adding the lines, so that way you have it's dual use, dual purpose. So yeah, I agree with you.
But the problem is we still have dedicated days. We worked that out. How is that going to
The
work?
dedicated day stays the same. I'm not asking to get crazy. I'm just saying that the talks that Steve initiated on adding the pickleball courts that he was supportive of, and adding pickleball courts is a misnomer because it's double striping. So you have the ability to play tennis on tennis days, and you have the ability to play pickleball on pickleball days. We're not changing the policy. We're not doing anything. We're not eliminating tennis courts. We're just enabling a residence group to come forward and pay for an amenity that they see fit, while not taking away from another residence group's amenity. So
The only thing I'm worried about is how is it to play tennis when you have all those added lines? We haven't talked to tennis players to find out.
Well, I can tell you firsthand that I've been kicked out twice for people playing tennis on tennis days because they wanted to play on that court. So apparently it's not,
That they can do
not
it?
that cumbersome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was hoping with the pickleball is, I know staff and the city, we were looking at adding permanent courts to San Gregorio when we could, that they start a fundraising, and if they have that many people, helping us to do that.
That's a
Dedicated
huge
courts.
financial burden that the city of Nora, I think the group is prepared to take on. But I'm not saying we don't look at that in the future. I'm just saying continue what Steve had started and not impede that anyway.
And if I may,
Please.
Mayor Pro Tem, in your proposed budget, you have, you've basically, once approved next week or the first week in June, we have site-specific plans that are part of the budget, and we're doing site-specific plans for San G and San Luis Rey. And as I indicated to the pickleball community when myself and Mayor Schwartz met with them and Ms. Jorgensen, that would be something that we'd be looking at in terms of the totality of those sites, in terms of, like, for instance, at San Luis Rey, converting the lawn bowling into a permanent pickleball facility, or looking at San G to do something more permanent, as well as other amenities in line with the park master plan. So that will be something that the council and the public will have an opportunity to deliberate on when we take on those site-specific plans.
Okay. Mark?
That was it. Yep, I'm good.
So can I break protocol and ask, Mickey Rathman wanted to make a comment. Do you still need to make a comment?
I believe it might be helpful.
So is there any objection to allowing her to give her comment?
I can fill in a card.
We'll have you fill out a card later. We all know where you.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for allowing me an extended period for public comment. I just wanted to remind the Council, as some of you are new, in the last fiscal year, the city, in an attempt to save some money, cut the sidewalk cleaning budget from the T-zone. And so for over a year's period, the sidewalks were not cleaned. So the photos that our friend and neighbor did show earlier were true, but those were taken last year. The DBA came, along with other residents, to lobby and talk to the Council about the concern of our dirty sidewalks, and you came up with the money, the $26,000 to clean the sidewalks. So it has begun. You did it, I think, once right after the new expense was approved, and then I believe you have it coming up again. Usually you do it right before the summer season, so I think that's starting again. So I just wanted to, remind folks of why it got so dirty and that there were steps taken to make it clean again. One other just additional thing is that with the increase that we've seen in vagrants and folks sleeping in the boat on the benches, we have seen an increased mess with some bodily fluids, vomit, and other disgusting things like that. The DBA has incurred some additional costs in cleaning out those bulb outs before our monthly art fair so that it's clean for those vendors as well as the public that comes to enjoy that space.
So that's the DBA that's been paying to clean those areas?
Yes.
Business owners?
Yeah. Yeah. And then just one other little thing is that there are really strict rules about cleaning it and that you can't wash the water down the storm drains. So it's quite a costly expense to do it properly and to contain that water and not have it wash down the drain. So it's really difficult for individual business owners to clean that and meet the requirements and not have people, complain because the water's going down the storm drains.
James, can I ask you, because I remember this happening, haven't we had maintenance calls where there's a specific issue with some of the bulb outs and staff's gone out and cleaned?
Yes, staff has gone out and cleaned them. Yeah.
I don't want the public to think that we are not cleaning. And I don't know if it was an entire year that we didn't steam clean, but one of the issues that happened last year is we cut quite a lot of services to add 2 new sheriffs. And unfortunately, the sidewalk steam cleaning was in that. We fully intended to put that back, but in the meantime, we didn't realize it was coming up so soon. The Fiesta hit, and the Fiesta was especially dirty, and that's what happened, and that's why this whole thing happened. So I just don't want to get it out that the city's not doing anything.
No,
but
we were so
sheriffs,
happy that it got back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we fully intended to do it, but with the budget and the Fiesta hitting, it happened, and we had problems with getting a vendor to do it. So that's what's happening. But DBA needs to, if they see something like that, they need to, you're our eyes and ears. If you see something or a shop owner sees something, call our maintenance department and let us know that there's an issue.
Absolutely, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Mickey.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
Dan.
All right. Any other comments?
My only other comment is on the Pier Pride. Do we have anything to do with this tonight? Shouldn't this be going through normal channels?
It is going through normal channels,
Okay.
And it's moving along. So,
We don't have any decision on this.
you can give us direction on incorporating the water fountain and the artwork, I think is what Ms. Donchak was asking.
So I wasn't sure if the entire amount for the water fountain was paid for, or if any of this required extra expenditures from the city. So that's what I would
I think it's just
interested in.
approving the project tonight, our peer project, and then Peer Pride will help us out with the rest of it. That was my understanding.
So, and my understanding as well is that the water fountain is like an extra 10,000 that would be covered as part of their 50,000 donation. They were just asking that.
Be part
They're
of it.
raising the money. They want the water fountain with the bottle, and I jogged that. It'd be nice to have a water refill on that spot. So.
Yeah, it's a $150,000 line item, and they want to raise $50,000 of the total.
Correct.
But some of it would be for extra things, so it wouldn't take off totally 50,000.
I don't think it was ever to take money off of ours, but to enhance our
Enhance.
project while we were doing it, to attack it all at the same time.
So who is approving the art?
I think we'll go through the BPR commission and bring it back for council for approval.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so as I understood that project, it was, hey, these are thoughts we had. This is what the designer architect is suggesting. If you guys want to do a different art theme logo on the front, we could do that. So I think the answer is emphatically yes, we want their money, and yes, we will do. At least my direction would be yes, we want the water fountains. So.
And we wanted, as we typically do, incorporate the use of the BPR commission to approve everything.
Of course.
Yeah, was this council the one that we had the issue with the sign thing came under special presentation, or was that the previous council?
What was this? It was early on.
Yeah.
And so they got way down the line. I think the instruction going forward from there was make sure they go through the right channels. But again, yeah, they'd been led so far down the road at that point, that would have been unfair to. I can't remember if it was us or it was one of our first meetings, I think, so. So no other comments? All right.
So, three things that we need to cover. So we have a decision package that was presented earlier with regards to the yellow sheet, with regards to the Public Works reorganization of a deputy director. So if we could get direction from council on that, if they approve it or not approve it. And then the other item is the direction as it relates to the arterial street maintenance project from the North Beach Association. And then the third one that Councilmember Ham brought up that I just want clarification, if you want us to take $2,000 out of council contingency and move it to the DBA fund, bringing it from $32,000 to $34,000, that can be provided as direction as well to the council, and we can move forward with that as well.
But before we get to that, just real quick, I had questions were raised earlier about whether the homeless shelter expenditures, the possibility of that, and the special election costs, were those already baked into this budget?
So I'll answer the first part, well, to both of them. Last night, when you approved the special election, you also approved an appropriation to fund the special election in the current fiscal year. That will be carried over into the new fiscal year as part of our carryover process, so we can check that box off in terms of addressing that. With regards to the homeless shelter, we haven't been given any direction to appropriate any monies, so there are no monies currently funded or proposed to be funded in the fiscal year budget before you. However, Mercy House funding is still in there as it is with their pursuant to their contract, and so we have that for the mobile outreach services. And then obviously the funding that we're incurring for the camping ordinance project that we approved, that the council approved last night, that is in the current budget year to fund those items that were under city manager authority.
So the final thing is we haven't discussed, and I think everybody's avoiding the public safety police services contract and what we want to do. I'm happy to hear that we're not cutting any of the services, and I think those two positions that were added last year have now been filled. I'm wondering what the appetite is on the council to add a crime prevention specialist person. When I went out to Talega, I heard that repeatedly, that that's what people wanted, because they used to do the neighborhood watch program, and so we didn't have that person. So if we could get a crime prevention specialist on top of what we've staffed, My understanding from Chief Manhart is that that would be something that he would be very happy with for the upcoming fiscal year.
I think we currently have a part-time crime prevention specialist in the budget, 20 hours a week. We did that based on the request of the last one. She left on maternity leave and didn't return, and we've had difficulty replacing with a part-time. So by going to a full-time, I think we're confident that we could probably add that person. And I think the cost is extra, Eric, for a...
I want to say off the top of my head, it's under $100,000 fully loaded for a full-time crime prevention specialist. And to James's point, we already have $25,000 currently budgeted for the part-time position. So at worst-case scenario, it would be an additional $75,000 to fund a full-time position.
$75,000 is what the Sheriff's Department is saying.
Is that because of benefits that it's so much higher? The $20,000 is unbenefited?
We'll call up Brian Waite from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. He can clarify the costs and everything.
While he's walking up here, real quick, Eric, what were those three things you said that were outstanding that we need to address? Was it
the decision package for Public Works and the deputy director, the striping project for North Beach as they requested, and then third was the question of moving $2,000 from council contingency to the DBA annual funding.
Go over the first one again.
It was the decision package that was presented earlier on by Jake. It's the elimination of
decision
positions
package. Got it.
for
Okay.
Public Works to create a deputy director.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, members of council. Brian Waite, the Sheriff's Department. So the total cost for the full-time crime prevention specialist is about $102,000 net of losing taking out the 25. It's about $77,000. The way our contract model works, all the position costs and overheads and things are all built into those position costs. So that's why the total price of that position seems high. It's benefits and all the overhead that goes into to the Sheriff's Department contract.
And what is the benefit to the city if we add a full-time? What is that person going to do? Can you answer that?
I'm going to turn that. I'm the budget guy. I'm going to turn that over to the chief. He can give you a little more.
I'd like to see how that person's going to enhance public safety. Thank you.
Chief, welcome.
How you doing?
Well, tired. I'm sure you are as
well. How that person would help out in that position. We like on the neighborhood watch meetings to meet multiple times a year, and how that person takes notes, organizes the neighborhood watch program, has the community communicate with each other, and provides leadership in that. Currently, right now, the community is doing it on their own and utilizing social media and that kind of thing. So the Sheriff's Department, in that position specifically, provides that leadership role, and that's what the community was asking for because they're just kind of winging it.
I think that this person needs to be really good, whoever we get, if we're going to expend this money to increase the program and bring some of the people back, the neighborhood watches that aren't active anymore. Because with AB 109 and Prop 47, we need to go into prevention and safety where we prevent ourselves from being a target. And I'd like to see that really increase. So I'm excited, and I would be supportive of doing that, but I really want to see the program take off. I just don't want to see someone just go to schools and talk to them. I really want to see that neighborhood watch really take off.
I think one way that we used the crime prevention specialists in the past was data collection, and that person helped out in crime mapping in the past, so that information could be passed off to the chief and to the deputies, and then they knew where the hot spots were in town and could better address them when they were out in the field, so to speak.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes, and it's important to note that for years, I know I started working at this city in 1999, we had a fully staffed crime prevention office. We had 3 full-time crime prevention officers and a population of about 22,000 less people. They did so much. and it's not much to ask for one, but there were different components of what they did. A newsletter for Neighborhood Watch, training of Neighborhood Watch block captains. They went out to help with safety and security at various homes, helping them, secure their homes, which is a lot of education and outreach. Then we had the schools, also for the Character Counts program, and then we had the statistics that they did, the regional crime prevention officer. So really educating the people on preventative crime is really important, and it was great. So I think that adding one crime prevention officer full-time could be a great asset, not only to the people, but to the department as well.
I'll also add as well that Chief has been filling that role as Captain Peters was before him, and I appreciate that. I'm sure you would like a little bit more of a break to focus on what your primary duties are, and as much as the community loves to see you, I think it'd be nice to have you focused on your job and have somebody else doing the crime prevention stuff with neighborhood meetings and all that. So I commend you for doing multiple jobs for the last several months. So as we told you in the interview, you'd be jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, and that's been absolutely true. So is that, and just to recap, was I misstating at all that if with the current levels and staffing with the crime prevention specialist, we'd be good? As much as I want to give you 10 deputies right now, I just don't know in this budget cycle we can do that.
I will take whatever you give me.
It's fair enough.
We're left with, I think we have 400,000 only for the year.
Well, and I want to have the discussion about where we can tighten our belt to look at perhaps some different motors and things like that. I think the number 10 was thrown out. I just don't know that that's even remotely doable. So,
And
was that thrown out? I'm not aware.
One of our speakers said
Oh, okay.
10.
Thank you. I thought it was in our book.
At what part in the meeting will we be discussing some key parts of the budget? I'm interested in the public safety, fire, and police to have some discussions
So
about.
I think that's now.
Okay, good. Because okay.
Yeah, please.
All right.
Do we need a lieutenant anymore?
I don't think so. For my question or my concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do you want to move these items?
Yeah, I was going to get some housekeeping stuff done. So the first one was I'm just going to call for the vote of the initial motion and second.
Second.
So I'm in favor of that one. That was the initial motion that we made earlier.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
Okay. I move that we approve the Yellow Page decision package with the reduction in staffing and a savings of $60,000.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
And then I move that we add $2,000 to the DBA budget to make them a total of $34,000 from council contingency to reduce council contingency to $50,000.
Motion by Councilmember Ham, second by Councilmember Ward. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay, and then the last part was just, I know you guys are talking about adding a full-time crime prevention specialist. I'm not sure where you guys were planning on getting the funding from, but I don't know if these pages are numbered. In the green sheets, we're contemplating adding a new locker room in the police substation.
Oh, yeah.
So my ask would be that we push pause on that for now to do a crime prevention specialist, because we may not have a need for new lockers depending on how we play this out. So
I had a question on that also. So
Pursuant to council direction, we can
Suggestion?
absolutely pull that out of the budget and redeploy those monies. Keeping in mind, and I know what Jake's going to say, that money is one time, and what you're recommending or potentially proposing is ongoing, but that's something that definitely can do.
year to year, the crime prevention specialist position, we've had some, as Laura pointed out, that have lasted more than 1 year, but year to year, it seems like we get a new individual in there and then someone transfers out. So I'm comfortable with it in this scenario. Dan, it's in the middle of the book. There's no real
page.
good way to tell you.
There's no page number.
I know where it's at.
Okay.
So I'm not comfortable with taking that away just because of the safety issues that I think the officers have down there. That's where they keep their firearms and they lock those. So.
But under the current circumstances, I'm not going to be, at a minimum, I'm going to table this
For now.
because of what the current circumstances are.
Well, tabling, I don't understand that. Table.
So I'm going to ask that we don't move to approve this locker room addition today.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask that at a minimum we table it today.
So it's not in the package. It would be pulled out of the package for now.
Yeah, no,
Because it says remodel PD locker.
Let me rephrase that, Dan. If no one's available to use the lockers, I don't want to pay $110,000 for new
Right.
lockers.
sure, no, I understand.
Okay.
So we'd have to reappropriate it later
So
if
that's
we
all we're
do that.
asking for a table at minimum. I mean, listen, I'm open to other ideas too. I mean, that might not be the best solution. So
But-
staff, if you have a better idea of what we can do with this.
So I just,
If we budget for something, just briefly, does not mean we have to use it. If there's not a need for whatever reason, we do not have to spend the money for that purpose, correct?
so I just received an email from Captain Puckett, and earlier this year we appropriated some money to do some improvements in the substation, paint and flooring. Yesterday, as we were doing the flooring project as directed, some floor tiles were removed. They came up with the carpet and everything. There were some concerns about asbestos exposure. Today, the county came out and inspected it. We also had our Public Works had someone come out, and we're waiting the test results. And I received an email a little bit ago from Captain Puckett saying that they are going to relocate their operations to the city of Aliso Viejo until we get a better idea of what's going on with the asbestos and how it can be remediated from downstairs. Asbestos is in buildings of this age are common and unavoidable sometimes, and we have to, as we do projects like this, sometimes these sorts of things happen, so we need to get a handle of it, and the county and city staff need to work together to see what the extent of the potential exposure was. So we'll support the Sheriff's Department as they relocate in the near future to Aliso Viejo, and we'll see how we can get a handle on the substation cleanup. So as far as the locker rooms, and that $110,000 expenditure, we might need to look at that and how that money's used in the future. So it's just something that popped up in the past 24 hours that we're trying to get a handle on.
And sorry, I knew the first part of that, but not the last part, that they had made a decision to.
I just got the email, and you got the email about 45 minutes ago from Captain Puckett.
If I can echo the city manager, what you could do is you could give direction to include the $110,000 the one time, and if there are mitigation fees to address the potential, as James indicated, we have our own consultants doing the testing. If in fact it's true, then we could use that money to mitigate the effort. If it's not true, then we could get with the lockers if they were to return to the substation, just throwing out solutions.
Sure, I mean, that'd be fine with me, because if we're going to have to do something to mitigate or test or whatever, the money's going to need to be there, I guess. The lockers, if they do go back there, that is a safety issue, from what I've been told. If we have to pull some of the other capital improvement work to cover this, then I'd be more comfortable with that as opposed to the lockers, because that seemed like, from what I was told, a bigger deal. So, is there?
I think I hear the council that you want to fund the part-time or the full-time crime prevention specialist. So I think I'm going to recommend that we keep the lockers in the budget, and then over the next 2 weeks, as we finalize the budget before it comes back for approval, we'll come back with a couple potential solutions for funding that position. So I don't think it's something that we can figure out right now, but I think Jake and Eric and I can go back and figure out some things.
That would work for me. I mean, just for my own edification, if we budgeted for that item and we didn't end up needing it because circumstances with the substation or otherwise, we could reallocate that. Is that fair? Okay. Does that work? All right.
So did you make the motion for the full-time crime prevention specialist? Was that in part of your motion?
Well, I think it's going to come back in the final budget adoption, correct? Yes. So
Okay.
I'm not going
So
to
it's
make much
just
of that. We
council
gave direction
direction?
that they're going to pursue that.
Well, we're not adopting the budget tonight. That's June 4th. I have a couple more concerns. Maybe Mr. Ron, if you could come up. I took some notes when I was reviewing the budget and typed up some notes. You had touched on the accrued liability payment for retirement and how it was moved. The accrued liability for retired San Clemente Police, not Orange County Sheriff's Department. So that has been transferred from the general government budget into Police Services Division budget. This budget's for contracted OCSD, the sheriffs, as noted in the purpose statement. But can you explain how the costs from retired police can be put into the document, which is solely contracted for OCSD, who have a different retirement system altogether?
Well, again, it's just recognizing it as, I'll call it, public safety related cost. We're just changing where it's budgeted. Much like other cities who have ongoing operations, they'd be paying for their costs through the public safety programs that they have. So, for example, let's say City of Irvine or City of Tustin, they would have unfunded liability too, and that cost would be allocated to their police programs. So we're just recognizing that it is a public safety related cost, and necessarily having it budgeted in general government, we wanted associated it with the public safety costs. It doesn't really affect anything. We could move it back to general government. We could keep it in public safety. But again, it's related to, I'll call it, the costs where those are housed.
Doesn't the optics kind of look like it's more than it should be, more expensive than it really is?
Well, I think that if we had our own police department, we would be showing that cost in the police department budget. We wouldn't be showing it in the general government budget. So it was a public safety cost when we had our own police department, and we're just keeping it in the public safety area to show what our total public safety cost is. It's an ongoing cost until all those officers and their beneficiaries pass. It's an expenditure that we have to keep spending and keep up to date on because of our history of having our own police department. So we're still paying for that, even though we went to the sheriff's department back in '94. It's just an ongoing.
How is that done with OCFA versus with the San Clemente had its own fire department before? Do we do the same thing for the fire?
Basically, we kind of took a look, and most of the costs, I would say, are police-related. There probably are a portion that are fire-related. We could come up with a percentage or something like that, but we just, at this point, figured out the majority of it's police-related, so that's where we put the costs. I mean, we could put 75% against police and then 25% against fire. Mm-hmm. It's again, just where, I'll call it, those costs are being budgeted. Mm-hmm. They're related to public safety. Police was where we located them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And
Before we get off this topic, I want to comment on that. Okay. So this is one of the things that I've asked for going forward in the budget process, that we nail down more specifically how much we're paying for public safety. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that year over year we're getting closer to hammering down exactly what our true cost is, because to Laura's point, when someone throws up a graph and it says, the city of San Clemente pays $10 million for police services, Laguna Beach pays $22 million for police services. Well, that's a $12 million deficit, right, if we were to go to a police agency of our own. I think doing this more closely reflects what our true costs for public safety are. Yeah. That being said, I'd support Laura if we could break it out and show this is fire, this is police, this is marine safety for next year's budget. So that way we have a clear understanding of this is truly what our public safety costs are. That's what I've been asking from day one. And I know it's kind of a moving target because as we go on, we're all trying to learn this process together in terms of contract services versus in-house services.
And we can talk with our actuary at CalPERS in the future to try and identify those a little bit better. Like I said, everything that we've received from CalPERS, where I'll call it incremental costs, have been police related. That's why we just associated, probably a vast majority of it is more police, but we can talk with our actuary at CalPERS and determine a more respectable percentage breakout.
I mean, that would be infinitely helpful for us at the dice.
I liked it this year. I'm glad you brought the point that it wasn't just all police, because the nexus between what the sheriff's, what our police budget is today versus what it would be if we had our own police services, it's a much clearer picture having that included as opposed to having it broken out somewhere else.
And again, hopefully this payment will go away after time. One of the goals of all the pensions are to be fully funded, so we wouldn't have to contribute towards those past employees anymore. Again, hopefully at some point it'll go away. I think based on the timeline that the actuaries are using, I want to say it's about 17 years or something along those lines. Again, it's in the pension update. I think it was 2034 or 2035 when those costs would actually, based on their analysis, would be going away. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Chris?
No.
I have one for James. James, you said earlier when you were speaking about the fourth firefighter on the engines that you said we will take over this funding of the fourth firefighter. I met with a specialist. He had 30 years in fire administration services, because that's a lot of money. That's concerning to me. You had noted 3 positions, but we have 3 shifts, I think. We have a fireman here. 3 shifts per day, correct? Is it 3 shifts today? 3 shifts total. So 3 firefighters. Anyway, so I met with somebody who has some really good experience, like I said, 3 decades of this, and 3 is recommended, right? 3 is recommended. The National Fire Protection Association issues standards, and they don't recommend, you don't have to have 4. It's not the law to have 4, but it's a high cost for us. So if that's going away, and we don't have to have 4. This person I met with had said that, as for fires, the city was we were the first city in the nation to have a fire sprinkler ordinance. There's a lot more now. But the city's good fire safety record, because this historic mandate, where's the data that demonstrates the need that we have to have 4? We have to have 4 in an engine. Because I would much rather, considering our good record here in San Clemente and our high safety measures that we have in place in our ordinances and with brush clearing and so forth. We do a really good job with deterrence there. Can we shift that to deputies so that we can add a couple of more deputies? Because for years and years we keep hearing the community wants to have a safer community and more deputies so that the response rate is better and crime can go down, because I think we're really suffering in that area. And I just can't approve a budget on June 4th when it comes back to us unless we do that. And I think we truly have to have every department make some reductions. I know we can, and I think we need to go back and have everyone make those reductions as well so we can make this happen.
Well, the fourth firefighter out there on engine 50 was added when the hospital closed. And the purpose of that was so that when the fire truck ran up to Mission Hospital in Mission Viejo, they could leave the firefighter, paramedic, with the patient at Mission Viejo, at Mission Hospital, while that patient was waiting to be admitted. I think Councilmember Ham can speak to this a little bit more elegantly, but then when with that firefighter there at the hospital, then the fire truck with 3 personnel on board can still respond to calls within the city of San Clemente. If there was only 3 firefighters or 3 personnel on the vehicle and it went to Mission and it had to wait with a patient, then that truck would be out of service. And there were response times issues with the other truck. I believe it's truck 29 in Dana Point that would have to backfill into the city of San Clemente. So that was the main reason. It wasn't, any other reason than that, but mostly because the hospital closed.
So I can expound upon that a little bit too for you, Laura. Using the term firefighter is kind of a misnomer in this circumstance, and referring to the NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Agency, sets standards for firefighting. the position was a firefighter paramedic that we added, and so we added an entire paramedic unit by adding that one position. And so with the closure of San Clemente Hospital, we doubled our transport times to Mission, and we also increased our wall times by 75 hours on average per month. So we had both of our paramedic units, we had 2 in the city, were essentially out of service and unavailable to respond, sitting up at Mission Hospital. And by adding the 1 personnel, but 3 shifts, like you correctly outlined, we added an entire paramedic unit. So we actually increased our paramedic units and capacity by 30%, or 50%, because we went from 2 to 3. So,
and we added ambulance too, right? Was it?
Yes, and that was the other thing we did. We had 1 ambulance in the city of San Clemente for 70,000
now.
people with an interstate freeway and a state park. We have a bunch of target hazards in this community, but to have 1 ambulance we were severely understaffed. So that's an entirely separate issue. That's a private contract, not fire related. So that's just a clarification.
Well, my comment still stands. I think every department and division needs to make some reductions so that we can fund deputies, a few more deputies. Really important for our community to have, especially with all the issues we've seen just exploded in the last few years. So there's a nexus there.
James, I thought this came up at our last budget hearing. Well, it didn't totally come up, but I thought you gave us where a paper of where we could make more cuts of all that was available, and that was a carryover from the last budget. So did you receive that?
Yes, I had emailed James and Eric with some recommended cuts, reductions, and that I thought we could make, and that was sent back to the full council by James. Some reductions that they had put in a table in the prior fiscal year.
Yeah, last year during the budget process, I went to the department heads, and they provided me with 2 scenarios, Scenario 1 and Scenario 2, where we reduced our budgets by enough to add 2 deputies or 4 deputies. And at that time, the council decided to go with option number 1, to add 2 deputies. And so we made cuts to the general fund budget accordingly, and we also reduced the overtime. And, the reason for reducing the overtime is because I don't feel that we should be funding, if we need services, if we need more deputies, then we should pay for more deputies. We shouldn't be paying for service out of overtime. Overtime should be used for unexpected, issues, illness, injury, vacation, special events, things that happen unexpectedly. That's where overtime should be used. It shouldn't be being used for extra help. We should be accurate. If we need deputies, we should charge it. We should just hire a deputy. A deputy right now, Brian, is $270,000. $270,000. So for every deputy we add to the budget, we have to find $270,000 worth of reductions to the budget.
So my question is, you gave us
I provided, I
cuts
think
that could be
Councilmember Ferguson asked for that back in February, somewhere around there, and I sent it to the whole council with the idea that if you guys wanted me to make that part of the budget, then you would have given me the direction as a body during the LTFP process. I think that's when we did it. Or now, the cuts are still valid, and I'd have to go back and look at them again and review them with the department heads, but...
I don't recall what they are, but I know in governmental accounting, and just what Jake did, trying to move some of the liability and call it in the fund that it should be going into, you're supposed to call things what they are. And that's why it is good. It's not good government practice in budgeting to if you need the positions, to just have it come out of overtime. So that I understand.
We hadn't typically used all of our overtime budget. So Chief Peters and I, for that one budget year, we blew through the overtime budget. I took the position with him that the city council budgeted X amount of dollars, what was it, $14, $15 million, and go ahead and spend $15 million. And if that includes going through the overtime so that we can get enhanced enforcement to see what it looks like, then we'll do that. And then we came back and said, okay, let's turn that overtime into regular full-time deputies.
So,
I think that it's also important to note that, you know, and I appreciate everything the deputies do, and I'm not sure that overtime is a healthy way to staff. I don't think it's healthy for them. I don't think it's healthy for us. Getting them the help they need, if that's what we determine we need more deputies, and I think that's better holistically for the deputies and for the city. And I think it keeps them, I would think that it keeps them fresher to do their jobs. They're out there, we're doing 312s. Is that what we're doing? 312s? You know, with overtime, they can work up to 16 hours a day. You're wearing a duty belt and everything else. That's a lot of gear. And to be huffing around for 16 hours. So I would prefer that we have fresh deputies ready to rock and roll for 12 hours like the expectation is.
Then why don't the council direct that James and Eric work with the deputies on how maybe we can fund more out of the overtime budget and how restructure it that way, if that's a possibility, because I don't know of any more cuts. I can't remember what they were, but we took such a hit last year to do these cuts. I just don't know where there is anymore. And our staff already has gone through cuts, and I know our staff is working with less than they ever have. We've been doing it since 2014, I think.
We reduced in the budget staffing costs by $400,000 this year on our side already, on our general fund side. So that's what we did as part of the budget, and we still only came away with a $400,000 surplus. So as Eric said, you know, we looked at staffing positions and what's needed. So we have been doing that and doing more with less.
And we appreciate it, and we know that. So when people say, you know, we've got to cut more and staff has to do with less, I don't know where that is, because I think that's what we're already doing.
Well, James, maybe you can answer this question. Just a hypothetical. Now I'm looking here at planning, just say planning department. Okay, so our city's built out, right? But our planners in the planning department, the staff has grown. So why do we need more planning when our city is built out?
I'll leave that to Cecilia Gallardo Daly to talk about the staffing of the
Okay.
planning department.
And maybe also with code. I'm just looking at this one page right now. This code compliance, code compliance, for instance, we've added the attorney, Silver and Wright, to assist with code enforcement, right? And yet we've grown, and since 2017, we've added there in code enforcement.
Yes, and that was part of the matrix study that we did back in 16 or 17. And one of the reasons for increasing the code enforcement was to help with vacation rental enforcement and those various nuisance and quality of life issues. And, you know, some of those issues, whether they were noise complaints and other disturbances, had typically been handled by the sheriff's department. And so we thought that by adding a code enforcement officer that works from 2 p.m. to 1 a.m. Thursday through Sunday, that we could alleviate some of the burden on the sheriff's department for those quality of life nuisance type calls.
And Silver and Wright is doing some of that too.
And so Silver and Wright is helping as we cite people for infractions. Then Silver and Wright helps with the prosecution of them. And for those sorts of things, there is a cost recovery element to it.
We learned that last night, $89,000.
Right.
Okay. So maybe Cecilia, maybe you can share a little bit about the planning and why we have, now that we're built out, but we continue to grow in positions.
Yeah, so the number of positions proposed for this coming fiscal year hasn't changed from the current fiscal year. There is a change from the prior fiscal years. And that is partly due to the matrix study and their recommendations that the planning division actually be organized as two distinct sections, one devoted exclusively to long-range planning and one devoted exclusively to current planning. When planners tend to mix long-range planning assignments and current planning assignments, the long-range planning assignments tend to get pushed aside. So we actually do have a backlog in planning of all of the discrete or council-directed code amendments, all the general plan implementation measures that we need to continue to work on, including Peer Bowl specific plan update and other specific plan updates. So, there's still work to do to implement the 2014 general plan, and part of that is also working on a local coastal program so we can have the ability to issue coastal development permits in the coastal zone.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, can I jump in for a second here?
Sure.
So first off, I want to commend you for wanting to have this conversation, because this is the exact conversation I've wanted to have for 6 years. If we're going to talk about public safety and make it a priority, then we need to dig down deep into the budget and see where we can make cuts. That being said, I want to commend you, but I also want to commend our Sheriff's Department and the excellent work that they do. Last night we approved a call it cutting edge idea of what we're going to do with one of the biggest public safety issues facing the city currently. And it would be my recommendation that we allow the Sheriff's Department to show us their ability to handle the situation excellently and show us that with the resources that they have allocated to us, they're actually able to enforce the rules and laws on the books. And if that is the case, then I think we could have a mid-year budget adjustment to adjust for more deputies, because like we heard this evening from at least two speakers and multiple speakers yesterday, the deputies aren't legally able to enforce the laws that are on the books currently. And so I want to ensure that our deputies are able to enforce those laws a week from today. And when they show that they can enforce those laws a week from today, and we need to give them more resources so they can enforce those laws, I'm 100% on board. But until we see boots on the ground affecting change, I don't think I'm at that point yet.
I appreciate your comments on that. However, the Martin versus Boise Ninth Circuit Court appeals ruling was from last fall, and I know that the citizens of this community have been asking for more deputies for several years now. It's probably been about 3. So I'm not going to waver on that, and I really believe that we need to prioritize that, and it comes up all the time, year after year, and the crime rates show it. And I mean, I live out in Talega, and we have our property crimes have skyrocketed out there. And and I talked to the former chief of police services about that, and the reason, being too, is that we have more crime, is that the highest amount of crime is down where the bars are, right? So down in your central and T-zone area of San Clemente. So those deputies get called out to go and assist them with all the issues, and then we're left, exposed for more crime. And it might happen in other, areas, not residential, but areas that are more east of the freeway, because we don't have the bars out there and all of the activities that come with it. So, and I'm signed up to be a neighborhood watch block captain. So we're going strong with our reigniting our neighborhood watch there. But it's we need some help in San Clemente and other communities as well, as you heard tonight. So. We need to find a way. And there is a way. There's always a way, but we need to get creative and have all the departments and divisions really look at their budgets and what they can do, or even maybe some contracting as well. So that's my point. Thanks.
Do you have anything?
I think the staff's already done it. If you want to reissue that memo to us of what cuts could be made to add the other 2, we could certainly look at it, but I don't see having our staff go back again and do it for a third time, what they've already done. We know the cuts that we could make. We had it in the memo. I didn't bring it because this wasn't brought up at the first financial budget hearing, so I didn't bring it tonight. I don't remember what they are.
Sit. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say I'm supportive of leaving the mid-year budget adjustment out there as a discussion point if we do see some good implementation coming forth in the next month or so. So we have the ability to have the conversations we want to have more, because I'm supportive of it. I think it's a good idea. We're just a little late in this budget process to be doing it now.
And I think the sheriff would maybe have a better idea of what they need once we get some of these other provisions going, and especially the crime prevention specialist, because that's a need that I know they have, and I think that's going to help with our burglaries and trying to get everyone to start locking their house and their cars.
That helps. And to piggyback on what Councilman Ham said, when you said it's late in the process, we really need to get this earlier, I think. Maybe if we can adjust that schedule going forward in the future to not get this budget 10 days before we adopt it. So I'd like to recommend that in the future, that we look at that.
So I think I want to take a look at that memo again. I don't remember it from February. I have to dig it back up.
It'll be easy to find. I have it somewhere, and I have it in an email. So let me review it with staff again and go through it with the department heads and Jake and Eric, and we'll refresh it, and I'll make the commitment to get it back to you by Monday so that you can review it.
I want to see it, but then I think the other aspect is I do want to investigate sort of the mid-budget cycle approach as well. I want to see both those items. And I think, Chief, can I invite you up one more time? I'm sorry. Just keep making you have to get up again. But just, thoughts from you in terms of if we wanted to staff a couple more deputies, if that need is there. I know you said you'll take whatever you can get, and I think we all would be in that position, but
yes,
where would that need be, and what would that look like?
That would be directed to enforcement with the burglaries and the thefts that we're having. Those are dramatically increasing. So the more deputies that we have out in the field, the more that we can address those issues. Also, too, with the homeless issue that we're having and the proposal that we're trying to do, that's going to take resources. So moving people and doing what we're supposed to be doing, we haven't even accounted for that. So let's go ahead and start taking deputies in the field and start repositioning them to deal with that. Well, now your neighborhoods in the North County and the South, all the way over to Talega, those deputies aren't going to be there. So I don't know what the city wants me to do, but where you want me to address it, I will allocate resources where you guys want them. But I'm telling you right now that we are just starting a huge undertaking right now, and I haven't gotten any help to address that.
So one of the ideas that, I don't know, I think I've talked to a few people about, but if we did something and we partnered with some of our neighboring cities, for example, with officers that deal with the homeless or crime prevention specialists, things like that, and we come back in the mid-year budget cycle and we have partners that are willing to share, is that an approach that we could potentially take in terms of sharing resources?
That would be great. And so we have the homeless outreach team both on Southeast Division and North County. And so what happens is you have other cities that have deputies that provide for those teams. And what happens, the teams kind of move around, kind of like our directed enforcement team moves around to hot spots and solves problems. Well, we have the most homeless in the Southwest Division. So the challenge you're going to have is having the other cities provide deputies for homeless issues, because Aliso Viejo, according to the point in time study, has one homeless person. I'm not sure that city is going to devote a deputy to that, but I would absolutely encourage that. But in order to provide a deputy for that position, I have to have a deputy to provide that. I don't have one right now, and if I do, then I'm going to pull it out of the rotation right now. So somewhere it's going to be cut short. I absolutely encourage that. I think that's a good approach to do. And San Clemente, we can be the leaders to kind of start that and say, hey, we will devote a deputy to that, but I don't have one right now to do that.
Okay, so you get what I'm getting at, though, is sort of an economies of scale approach where we can share costs with other cities for items like that. So.
The South County city managers have been having an ongoing conversation, and maybe Commander Sawyer can address it a little bit more clearly than I can, but we have been having an ongoing conversation since before Sheriff Barnes was elected, about maybe potentially having a more regional approach to some of the issues, and we've started the dialogue with him. You know, he's been on board since December, so to speak, and but it's a conversation that we're having today. I met with the city manager of Mission Viejo, and we talked about it some more and bringing that forward. So I know the South County city managers are interested in solutions that the sheriff's department might have to address some of the issues they see in South County with the contract cities.
That's a good question. Lieutenant, one of the questions I had was a special enforcement team also. So it requires us to have a deputy to provide to that team in order for the sheriff to send an enforcement team in for a little period of time to deal with something? Or is there the resources?
So a special enforcement team, we do not have that. We have a trip team. And so
Right.
we have the 3 deputies, and they are basically a special enforcement team. And what they do is those resources are allocated to problem areas that I determine, and we address them. So that's what they're doing. So I'll give you a prime example. The last 2 weeks they've been at the mall, at the shops. And if you guys read in the newspaper where they apprehended 4 burglary suspects in custody, ran out to their car where the suspects rammed our car, took those guys into custody. The week after that, they had another case. So here's the dilemma. We have that going on constantly, but now we have other issues in North Beach and down to T Street. So where are we going to allocate those resources? I can pull them from the outlets, but now the burglaries are going to continue. And so that's what I'm asking you is the challenge is we have the deputies, but I have to put them in a certain area to enforce. And so when you're asking me if we have a set team, well, I don't have a set team, I have the trip team. If we want to do the hot team, well, then I need a deputy to do that. I don't have any deputies right now that are just sitting at my station that, hey, give me an assignment. That is not happening right now.
So
Just real quickly,
Okay.
I need a
Go ahead.
bathroom break. Can we
Oh.
take a bathroom break? 5 minutes?
Okay. Oh, okay, so
I have
are
another
you,
question.
with the
We have
current endeavor that we're trying to undertake, is there deputies or is the county able to allocate any extra help for you in just a short period of time?
I will call additional resources, but once again, for an emergency situation, I can do that, but on a consistent basis, no, because somebody else is paying for that. As if our city was asked to help out another city, the question would be, who's paying this and why am I paying for services that the city's not receiving? So that is a real challenge. So if you're asking me to, I can reach out to all kinds of places to get deputies, but they're not going to be happy providing them if they're working down near number 2. If we're going to pay overtime for it, who's going to pay for that? Our overtime budget, just FYI, you guys probably have the figures. I'm at 140% right now. I still have 2 more months to go. So if we want to talk about
Well, we're at the end of the year, right?
So let's take a quick break, 2-minute break.
Okay.
I use the restroom. We'll come back. We'll take these comments and we'll. All right, we're going to reopen here. Any other questions of Lieutenant?
Just one final one. Oh, would you like to go first, Kathy?
Since I was asking some stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that you have enough people for our current endeavor, that what we're trying to do. So I know you're coordinating that with our staff. And so that's just an interest, because we have some people they need to be taken care of well. And so you need to have the amount of people that you need to do that.
I will obtain the necessary staff through my.
So, and one concern is hearing that the outlet mall is taking up so much of our resources, because we talked about that a lot, and one of our sergeants is up there, and they have their own security. So is this...
one of our retired sergeants,
retired, thank you.
Joe McClintock, is chief of security.
Thank you. I should have said that. Should have said it that way. So if the outlet mall is becoming more of a concern, we need to be aware of that, because that's the first time I'm hearing about it.
I can't speak on the efforts that he does or his team does, but I can tell you what my trip team is doing. And if you want stats, I can provide stats and arrests and the amount of money and property that they've recovered from the burglaries that are occurring there.
At the outlet mall.
At the outlet mall.
Yeah, I think I'd like to know that. Yeah. And how that is maybe affecting safety and other things we're not doing in the rest of the city. So that would be great.
That's an interesting thing, because I think attractive. It attracts a certain element of crime, and I think the city has been deficient over the years, as Councilmember Ferguson pointed out. We contracted with the Sheriff's Department back in '94. We pretty much set our limits with them, and then we added Forester Ranch, Talega, the Reserve, the outlets, now Sea Summit, and at no time did we address the public safety need. And we've just added without looking at that. The Sheriff's Department, could probably use some more deputies. I think we all agree on that. And also, I think if you talk to the fire department, they would love to see a fourth station. We're 18 square miles. We have 3 stations in town. We have the station, was it Station 60 on Victoria, that is constantly on the roll. And it's getting to the point right now, according to Division Chief Capobianco, where we're going to have to look at adding another engine to that firehouse, because it's getting up to the point of the number of calls that it's out on. And part of that is because of the freeway. That engine is always out on the freeway. So we are, in a way, you could make the argument that we're deficient in public safety. The question is, how do we pay for it? Because, as Cecilia mentioned, we have a backlog of planning initiatives that are directed by the council and by the public. And it's no fault of the Sheriff's Department or the Fire Department, but their pension costs are such that their rate is going up at such a high percentage every year that it impacts our ability to keep up with them, because our revenues aren't going up at that rate. And honestly, I know you guys don't want to hear it. I know the public doesn't want to hear it. But we really need to have a conversation on what's important. And, if services are important, then we need to make it happen. And if those services are important, then we have to look at what are we going to do revenue-wise to pay for them. Is that revenue? I'm sorry, but we didn't adopt the TOT. We didn't adopt it in 16. We didn't adopt it in 18. That's a loss over the past 3 years of $1.75 million. I'm not saying we would have used it all on police services, but that's 2 deputies a year right there that we could have funded with TOT that wouldn't affect the residents of this town. 67,000 residents would not pay for that. The visitors to this town would pay for that and supplement the load that they put on our police department and help supplement what demand they're putting on it with 2 million visitors to the city. Conversely, I brought up the business improvement district for the downtown. Again, add meters. Do we increase revenue there? Can we take that money and then dedicate it to a deputy that is assigned to the downtown T-zone? And these are conversations that I think we should have, and we should have them in a mature fashion that address the issues that are at hand, that we need increased public safety. But we also need to do these things like Cecilia points out of planning initiatives. We need to provide recreational opportunities. I think if we do a pickleball court, that's a $350,000, $400,000 budget cost to add a pickleball court the size of a tennis court. So those are the sorts of costs we're looking at constantly, and staff is evaluating them and trying to keep up with the revenues we have. The outlets right now are doing $850,000 a year in revenue. We built Vista Hermosa with the idea that the outlets would pay for that and would leave money left over. We assumed at one time that the outlets would produce upwards of $4 million in sales and property tax. Right now we're at, in sales and TOT. Right now we're at $850,000. It's been 4 years since they opened their doors up over there. We thought we were going to get $4 million. We're close to $3 million behind in what we thought we were going to get. Vista Hermosa costs us $900,000 a year to operate, close to $1 million. The outlets have barely paid for it. So those are the challenges that staff has on a year-to-year basis, and it really comes down to revenue. We did do a survey last year, and we polled the residents. I think we can produce it for the council, and we asked them if we did a tax increase, a parcel tax or something for public safety. Is there a desire for it? And there was no desire. There was no appetite. I think it came in at 38%, Eric?
A little lower than that. I want to say 34.
So we have looked at it. We thought about adding it to the ballot. And the one that we thought we had the best chance at was the TOT. So that's it for me.
That's a great, thank you for saying that, because we need to remember that and that all that happened. But I'm just wondering, since we already are doing an election, if you could look at adding, what the likelihood of adding it and not saying TOT, because apparently our residents are not for visitors paying any more to come in here and paying their fair share. One of my neighbors, I hate to say, the reason he told me he didn't vote for the TOT is because he travels all the time and he hates all the extra added taxes on his airplane bills. And I said, but you don't understand, this is so that people will help pay for our infrastructure that they're using when they visit. So look at maybe how it's worded, that it's for sheriffs and fourth firefighter and all of that for public safety.
If we add it to the election, and the Mayor Pro Tem and I have had this discussion on an ongoing basis, if we say we're going to dedicate the money to public safety, we need 66% to get it adopted. And we got our butts kicked at 53 to 47. This our 54 to whatever it was. It wasn't pretty, but we didn't declare what it was. And the Mayor Pro Tem and I have had an ongoing discussion about how we should do it if we did it again.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and regarding the TOT tax measure, the city put on the ballot, I mean, any ballot measure, if without any specificity in where the money will go, it's unlikely it will pass. So that's my comment there. And regarding the outlets in the hotel, when it was first approved, and every year the numbers were updated, but I remember it was about 2.3 million, not 4 million. So I just wanted to note that. I was very involved in that project years ago. But back to Chief Manhart, could you maybe tell us the facts about how we compare to other cities in South Orange County in terms of numbers of calls and deputies per 1,000, our population, per our population?
We have 13 contract cities in the Sheriff's Department that we patrol, and Mayor Pro Tem Bain, we discussed this during the interview with the city manager when I was applying for the job. When I came down here as a deputy, that San Clemente is one of the busiest, if not the busiest city for deputies to work in. We have a high volume of calls, and staffing levels compared to other cities are not the same. Hence, getting people down here, the recruiting and retention issues of getting people that want to come down here is also a challenge as well.
Why is that?
Because it is extremely busy. It's a demanding city.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. So we have 2 comment cards, and I think we can hopefully close this out. Go to oral communications. Joanne. So first is Trish, followed by Brad Malamud. Hi, Trish.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a resident of San Clemente for the last 15 years. I've lived in other surrounding beach cities right here all my life. I wasn't even going to speak because I cannot speak succinctly after hearing everything I heard. It is all over the place. I was going to start out asking all the things on this budget I don't understand. Miscellaneous income as revenue is going to grow by 225%. That is amazing and fabulous. What is it? What are we doing? I mean, I would love to support it. How are we growing our what is miscellaneous income, and how is it going to grow by 225%?
Once she concludes public comments, we can address her questions.
Expenditures, other charges. I don't know what those are, but we spend $1,235,000 and some change on them. That's a big miscellaneous category to me. I would just like to know how it's spent. I pay over $10,000 in property tax. I don't want to be negative and condescending, but I am blown away that you guys are here to pass a budget and you are out in Talega. I hope you're on Neighborhood Watch. You guys got vigilantes. Some Jason guy's going to blow those people away. Coming by on the electric bikes, doing the car handles. You have an elderly gentleman right here that's going to get physical with the people in his community. The police response is awful. I'm sure they try, but listening to them, you guys don't have any statistics on the number of crimes, on the number of car break-ins, on the number of rapes and response time, and you're balking at getting another fireman or fire truck or ambulance when it takes 20 minutes to get to Mission Hospital now? And we got Camp Pendleton always blowing the place up, and our fire department doesn't get involved till it comes over the ridge. I live in those homes up there. By then, I sure hope they're not down at Mission Hospital helping somebody when we need them right here. The response time until each one of you individually experience your car broken into, your daughter being raped, your things happening, you're not going to understand. This is amazing at the lack of police presence we have. I feel the city, I've not come to a finance meeting. The city is chasing its tail, being reactive in a huge lag time. If we had this police presence, maybe things wouldn't have gotten so bad. These criminals, as drug out of their minds that they are, or crazy as they are, or lack of education that they are, they got it figured out. They know the cops can't be down at T Street and Talega and all these places at once. It's terrible. I went and got cameras on my home about 3 times a month now. I see a person pull the door handles of my car. I'm sorry, I respectfully ask for a little bit more because you guys hit a big nail on the head of unfunded liability about contracting now, which is a much better thing. But I don't know that the public, I'm a county employee, I'm on the dole, it's a really good thing. All of you guys, I don't know how many employees you have, 150? Every single one of you guys is an unfunded liability. The chief stood right up here, or somebody said, all those people.
Trish, can I ask you to wrap it up?
Yes, until they retire, until they die and their dependents die, you guys are still paying that. It's that way with every single one of the employees when they retire out. It's a huge unfunded liability. I have so many questions about this budget. An educated person not in the city can't read it.
Thank you, yeah. So
Thank you.
it's going to be adopted on June 4th, so you'll get a second chance
I
to
hope not.
email those questions, and you can appear at that hearing as well. So my house was burglarized in Talega 10 years ago, so I definitely understand what you're saying, and that's what we're going to try to work on. Thank you. Mr. Malamud?
Thank you. James, everything you said was correct a few minutes ago. It was virtually the same thing I said, and when I said it, Chris said I was a liar. And, you know, I don't address, and everybody knows about me, I don't address individual council members. In fact, I didn't mention Chris's name or any other council member tonight. I addressed policy. Shame on you, Chris. We had emails back and forth a few years ago that you would never attack me personally unless you gave me a chance to respond. You're a coward, and I've never called you up before. But why would you do that? Last night I was complimentary of you, and tonight you attacked me as lying. I didn't lie about anything. The hotel you talked about was approved years ago. Yet it took, a Chick-fil-A took, what, 2 years, and is still not approved or not started. Terramundo took 3 years. Don't tell me the city is business-friendly. Don't tell me we're approving hotels. The last hotel we approved was...
Brad, do you want me to interrupt you like you interrupt me from the back, or do you want me to give you the full
guys,
3 minutes
Chris,
of full respect you deserve?
Chris, we need to give him his 3 minutes. I'm going to add 15 seconds to your time, Mr. Malamud.
I appreciate that. This is my point. I've never called you out personally during this council meeting until tonight. I didn't mention you tonight, Chris. I didn't mention anything about you. I mentioned the council and the city. I have a right as a citizen to do that. If you want to attack me, I'm a big boy. I can take it. You want to call me a liar? Okay, I just proved to you I didn't lie. So the city manager said virtually the same thing I said. So if you call me a liar, you're calling James a liar. I've never heard him lie in front of this council. He tells us what his view is. He has the right to do that, and so do I. If you want to address policy with me, let's go at it, Chris, anytime you want. Okay? You do a job, you were elected, you should do that job. But we as citizens have a right to say, maybe we're not. Nobody's addressed, thank you, Dan, for addressing the points I raised. Where's the $3 million for the homeless coming from? You guys didn't resolve that tonight. You're worried about a sheriff or two. $3 million would pay for plenty of sheriff. You don't have it in your budget for the homeless shelter. So I think we need to raise these points, and I think we need to do exactly what I said, which is find revenue sources. That's what I was called the liar about. We need revenue sources. We haven't done it. Chris, you haven't done it. And I'm sorry for addressing you personally. This council hasn't done it. But it's time for them to look at it. And I'm not saying new taxes at all. I'm saying zoning that will bring in revenue sources, implementing quicker turnaround times for businesses coming into town, helping businesses through promotion. There's all kinds of ways we can do it without spending money on it, but we can make it business friendly. We're not a business friendly town. We haven't been for years. And I think that what I heard from James tonight was great. Maybe we can become that. You know, maybe we can move towards that direction. And as far as cuts to departments, there is cuts to be made. We added 2 enforcement officers for compliance. We did that to help the people. We don't need those. They're not necessary. They're sitting, not working all the time. We can cut those back and put 1 sheriff in place. We can cut in the city manager's department, at least take away an administrative assistant, get rid of the legislative assistant we certainly don't need. We can get rid of assistant city manager. So my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malamud.
I'm sorry, I was told my questions would be answered when I was done speaking. I forgot.
Yeah, so I'm going to step in here for a second and defend myself, Brad, because...
Which you wouldn't let me do, Chris.
Well, you just got 3 minutes to do it, actually, and I interrupted you because you interrupted me from the back multiple times this evening. But I will tell you this, Brad, is when you speak calmly and concisely and you have valid points, you make very good ones. But when you make rash generalizations like this council over the past 7 years has stopped business or stopped hotels, that is you actually did. It's factually inaccurate, Brad. And I'm not, Brad, I'm going to give you the same respect that you give me, which is I'm going to interrupt you right now. I'm still interrupting you, Brad. So is this how we're going to operate from now on? Is that how we're going to operate? Every time you get up here, I'm going to interrupt you. Thank you.
Go ahead. I'm happy for you.
Brad, I show you absolute respect every time you come up here. I give you a full 3 minutes to speak, and you never do the same. You never do the same. So I'm rebutting what you had to say, and what you said was factually inaccurate. As far as what you said to James this evening, I completely agree with you. I think James is accurate in what he said, and you have said those things before, and I agree with both of them. But the things you said earlier this evening, not all of them, some of them were factually inaccurate. They're grave generalizations over what has happened in this community over the last 5 years. That's all I'm saying. Thanks for coming.
Eric, can you please address
Absolutely.
that?
So first, with regards to the question of metrics in terms of how many crimes, response times, and so forth, so I always encourage the public to refer to the performance measures tab, specifically for public safety, page 296, which breaks down not only calls for service It breaks out type 1 crimes. It drops part 2. It highlights moving violations, and it provides numbers for both 2017-18 fiscal year, 2018-19, and the projection for 2019-20. So those have always been in our budget and are available for the public. Jay can answer the rest of the questions, and also I would refer her to our long-term financial plan where we did a pension white paper on all of our unfunded liabilities, and council adopted financial policies to address those unfunded liabilities that are reflected in your proposed budget tonight.
Those stats on page 296, Eric, those are all provided to us from the Sheriff's Department.
That is correct.
And before Jake addresses the questions about miscellaneous income and expenditures, she also mentioned that she pays $10,000 a year in property tax. And I think, the public has this misconception that their property tax bill goes completely to the city. In the city of San Clemente, we get about 14%, 15%. That's
about right, Jay.
Of every dollar spent. So out of her $10,000 that she spends on property tax, we get about $1,500. So the majority of that money goes to the school district, well over 30%, I believe. Councilmember Ferguson? About half. So that's where the bulk of property tax funds go to. Jake?
All right, so just to deal with the question on miscellaneous, it going up 225%. The big portion and the reason for the increase is there's actually $170,000 going down to our public-private partnerships. The Little League is making a donation for some capital improvements, so $170,000 of that increase is related to that, and that's identified on page 87, and then also on the CIP sheets, and that identifies which specific capital projects. That would be on page 218 and 225. I didn't look up the names of those projects. I think it's some sheltering or awnings or something like that. But that's the reason for the big increase in miscellaneous. As to the other charges, which would be the expenses, those are identified on page 96 and 97, and I took a look at those, and the vast majority of them are related to contract class instructors. I have the dollar amount. Almost $700,000 of it's related to contract class instructors, and then that's also where we lump some of the DBA, social services grant, and council contingency, where you guys moved the $2,000 over to the DBA. It's also in there. So, you're welcome.
Just a quick question, Councilman.
Sorry, Trish, if we could, we give everybody 3 minutes. We have to move along. I think if you want to email any of us, we'll respond. Eric will respond. Everybody.
Okay, I'm going to move that well, first off, I want to commend staff on a fantastic job. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. And with that, I move that we adjourn to the next regular council meeting, which will be held on June 4th, 2019. The council chamber is located at 100 Avenida Presidio, San Clemente, California. Closed session items will be considered at 5 p.m. The public business session will commence at 6 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.